Imagine tearing open the dusty pages of history and finding not answers, but profound questions. Across every continent, from the monolithic puzzles of the Andes to the cryptic scripts of the Indus Valley, ancient civilizations left behind clues that challenge everything we believe about our past. We speak of primitive man, yet they erected structures with astronomical precision, crafted metals with forgotten techniques, and mapped the stars with uncanny accuracy centuries before telescopes existed. Were they just lucky guesses, or is the timeline we've been handed merely a convenient fiction? These are the forgotten wonders, the impossible feats of engineering, and the sudden disappearances that whisper of lost golden ages. A history far stranger, more advanced, and perhaps more terrifying than the textbooks dare to admit. What if one of humanity's greatest myths wasn't a myth at all? For centuries, the story of Troy, the city of warriors, gods, and betrayal, was dismissed as nothing more than poetic imagination. Yet beneath the windswept hills of western Turkey, archaeologists are uncovering evidence that the city sung of by Homer may have been a real place, built by real hands, defended by real heroes. This is where legend bleeds into history. Massive stone walls emerge from the earth, their age defying belief. Weapons-charred ruins and ancient DNA whisper of a civilization that once stood at the crossroads of East and West until it was consumed by war and time. And as modern technology reveals secrets long buried, one question echoes louder than ever. Was Troy merely a story, or the shattered memory of a world that truly existed? If Troy truly existed, do you think it was a powerful empire, lost to time, or just a city made immortal by legend? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In the 19th century, Schliemann began excavations at Hisarlik in western Turkey. There he found not one but many layers of cities built on top of each other, each representing a different civilization. Walls, gates, weapons, and artifacts revealed that this was once a strategic center lying between East and West, where ancient Greece met Asia Minor. Modern archaeologists have confirmed at least 9 layers of settlements at Troy, built and destroyed repeatedly over more than 2 millennia. This means Troy was not just a single city, it was a succession of civilizations surviving through time and war. When Schliemann announced that he had discovered the treasure of King Priam, hundreds of gold, silver, and bronze artifacts, the world was stunned. Was this truly the treasure of the king from the Iliad, or merely a carefully arranged collection to boost Schliemann's fame? Today, many scholars doubt that the artifacts are all from the same era, but no one denies that they came from the real Troy, the city of fire and blood, where myth stepped into history. In the layer known as Troy Sithn, archaeologists found burnt ruins, bronze spearheads, armor fragments, and even human remains buried under collapsed walls. Everything matches the description of a long siege. Though there is no absolute proof that this was the Trojan War from the Iliad, it is undeniable that a real war took place here. When German and Turkish archaeologists returned to Hisarlik in the 21st century, they uncovered something astonishing. The city walls of Troy were unlike any other structure of their time. Built from massive limestone blocks, fitted so tightly that no gap could be seen. These walls stood over 10 meters high and 4 meters thick, with a slight inward tilt, a design that deflected impact from siege weapons instead of absorbing it, just like the principles of modern fortifications centuries later. Some sections included underground drainage systems, covered ramps leading to gates, and strategically placed watchtowers, evidence of remarkable military engineering. Ancient architecture experts remarked, if you didn't know the date, you'd think this was a Roman fortress, not something built more than 3,000 years ago. This left archaeologists puzzled. How could the Trojans achieve such advanced engineering so far ahead of their time? The walls of Troy are more than just ruins. They are a riddle carved in stone. Each massive limestone block, some weighing tens of tons, was fitted so precisely that no mortar was needed and no tool marks can be found. The joins are tight, seamless, and astonishingly clean, as if the builders shaped the rock itself like clay. This level of precision echoes the engineering of the Inca in South America, where enormous stones were also placed together with microscopic accuracy. How could two civilizations separated by oceans and thousands of years share such a remarkable principle of construction? Some archaeologists suggest that the Trojans might have inherited their knowledge from an even older Anatolian or Mesopotamian culture, one that has long vanished. Others go further, speculating about a lost technique, perhaps involving extreme heat resonance or water pressure that made stone pliable. While such ideas remain controversial, new radar imaging and three-dimensional scans reveal something undeniable beneath the soil. Deeper layers of Troy's fortifications remain untouched and unbroken, their strength defying earthquakes, time, and explanation alike. Beyond its towering walls, Troy revealed the soul of a true metropolis. Archaeologists discovered sprawling residential areas stretching far beyond the citadel, proving that this was not just a fortress of war, but a city built for life, faith, and trade. Inside, intricate drainage systems hinted at careful urban planning, while vast granaries and administrative quarters spoke of organized governance. Temples and sanctuaries revealed a society bound by ritual and belief, and traces of metal workshops and artisans' tools suggested thriving industries. Troy, it seems, was not an isolated stronghold, but a vibrant hub of culture and commerce, its influence reaching Egypt, Crete, and even the distant Caucasus. Through DNA analysis of skeletal remains, scientists discovered that Troy's inhabitants carried a genetic blend of ancient Anatolian, Aegean, and Caucasian lineages. This suggests that Troy was not purely Greek nor Anatolian, but rather a multicultural crossroads where peoples mixed through trade and war. Curiously, Homer's descriptions in the Iliad, tall walls, sloped gates, and watchtowers match the archaeological evidence almost perfectly. Was he simply a poetic genius, or did he inherit the oral memory of real witnesses who once lived through the fall of a great city? Today, Troy is more than an archaeological site. It is a symbol of human intellect, emotion, and tragedy. The silent stones beneath the earth still tell the story of pride, ingenuity, and downfall. From its ashes, humanity learns that a civilization truly endures only when it leaves its story behind. Who designed those seemingly modern defensive walls that still stand unshaken after more than 3,000 years? Where did the ancient Trojans learn such advanced techniques? Did they inherit them from a forgotten civilization? Or were they the true pioneers of an engineering knowledge now lost to time? And finally, was Troy merely a single city born of myth and memory, or could it have been the last surviving fragment of an even older, more powerful world that vanished long before history began to write its first lines? These questions linger like echoes over the windswept ruins of Hisarlik, reminding us that beneath every legend lies a truth still waiting to be unearthed. Hidden for nearly 2,000 years beneath a suffocating layer of volcanic ash, the walls of the Villa of the Mysteries in Pompeii burst back into light like a vision preserved in time. What awaited archaeologists was not the ruin of a Roman villa, but a room of living color, a theater of gods and mortals frozen in motion. These murals, now known as the Dionysian frescoes, remain among the most haunting and sophisticated masterpieces ever discovered from the ancient world. They are not merely paintings, they are an entire psychological and spiritual experience. What do you think makes these Pompeii frescoes appear so three-dimensional and full of life even after more than 2,000 years? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in the year 79 after Christ, it buried Pompeii beneath more than 6 meters of ash and pumice. The disaster annihilated the city, yet paradoxically protected it. Inside the Villa of the Mysteries, sealed away from air and light, a rectangular chamber survived almost untouched. When excavators finally entered in the 20th century, torches illuminated crimson walls so vivid they seemed freshly painted. Every inch of the surface glowed with life women in flowing garments, mythic creatures, instruments of ritual, and faces filled with emotion. The frescoes seemed to breathe. This miraculous preservation turned the villa into an archaeological time capsule, providing an unparalleled glimpse into Roman art, religion, and psychology. Scholars soon noticed that the imagery centered on Dionysus, god of wine ecstasy and resurrection. The room appears to depict an initiation into his secret cult, the so-called mystery religion of Dionysus. Only initiates were allowed to know its rites. Outsiders were forbidden to speak of them. The sequence of figures reads like a narrative. A young woman enters the chamber, undergoes symbolic death, endures trials, and re-emerges, transformed, embraced by Dionysus himself. Whether this represents an actual ritual or a spiritual allegory is still debated, but the power of the images is undeniable. Every movement, gesture, and glance pulls the viewer into an atmosphere of sacred drama, part theater, part hallucination. What makes these frescoes truly extraordinary, even more than their subject matter, is the technique, a mastery of space and illusion that should have been impossible in the 1st century. Roman artists painted directly onto wet plaster, the fresco method, so that pigments fused with the wall itself. This was common enough. What is not common is how the painters of the Villa of the Mysteries used that surface as if it were a 3-dimensional stage. They achieved a level of depth, light, and realism that anticipates Renaissance perspective by more than 1,000 years. The walls are not flat, they open. Figures seem to step out of the background, casting shadows that fall naturally, standing upon a floor that recedes into space. Look closely, and the effect is almost cinematic. The young initiate leans forward in terror as a winged fury brandishes her whip. A satyr turns his head mid-motion. A matron gazes toward a sound beyond the frame. These movements are not frozen. They vibrate with continuity. The viewer does not simply look at the fresco, one becomes part of it. Modern restorers, studying microscopic layers of pigment, discovered that the artists built the illusion by using color gradients and optical tricks that mimic natural light. Flesh tones were modeled with translucent washes of red ochre and white. Folds of fabric were built with thin, overlapping layers that bend light as if silk were real. Even more mysterious is the geometry. The background architecture painted behind the figures follows a consistent vanishing point, subtly tilted so that the entire room feels like a continuous panorama. When one stands in the center, perspective lines from all 4 walls converge, pulling the eye into an invisible depth. The sensation is almost vertiginous, as though one was standing inside an ancient virtual reality. This manipulation of space demonstrates not just technical genius, but deep understanding of human perception. The artists of Pompeii, long before optics or linear perspective were discovered, had already mastered the psychology of seeing. Equally astonishing is the control of chiaroscuro, the balance of light and darkness. Figures emerge from the red background like sculptures illuminated by torchlight. Highlights sparkle on skin and jewels. Shadows pool beneath feet, and drapery creating the illusion of weight. Unlike later medieval icons which flatten reality to emphasize the divine, these painters embraced physicality. They celebrated the human body's sensuality and movement, echoing the Dionysian ideal of unity between spirit and flesh. It is this mastery of light that grants the frescoes their hypnotic realism. The room does not depict a myth, it summons it, transforming the observer into witness of a sacred performance that unfolds in eternal twilight. Color itself speaks. The dominant hue, the deep Pompeian red, was made from mercury oxide, a pigment both precious and toxic. It shimmered like blood under lamplight. To the Romans, red was not merely decoration. It symbolized vitality, sacrifice, and divine power. Surrounding black borders represented the unknown, the void before initiation. Between them, the dancers and priests act out the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. The very architecture of the room, with its rhythmic columns and painted marble panels, frames the narrative like a theater set, each wall a scene, each figure a player. Each figure painted on the wall seems to exist between two realms, the mortal and the divine. A young girl, her veil lifted and face pale with anticipation, represents the initiate confronting sacred mysteries. Beside her stands an older woman, her stern gaze guiding the novice through the ordeal. At the edges of the scene, satyrs and Maenads, half-human, half-beast companions of Dionysus, dance in divine frenzy. At the center, Dionysus reclines in serene ecstasy, his body resting upon a mortal woman, symbolizing the union between humanity and godhood. Every detail is rendered with rare empathy and psychological depth. Each gesture holds emotion, fear, or surrender. The artist captured not only the form, but also the soul of humanity at the threshold between two worlds. Despite centuries of study, much about the Dionysian frescoes remains unknown. Who commissioned them? Were they the work of a single master or a team? Was the villa's owner a devotee of Dionysus, or did the paintings serve as mere decoration? And how did ancient artists develop such advanced illusionistic methods centuries before perspective was codified in Florence? Some historians suggest the painters used geometry imported from Greek theatrical design. Others whisper about lost treatises on optics. Whatever the origin, the mystery persists, a technological and artistic leap, seemingly out of its time, as if the walls themselves were painted by someone from the future. Beyond technique and beauty lies a symbolic message. Dionysus, god of wine and resurrection, embodies the eternal rhythm of destruction and renewal. The frescoes, created in a city destined to be destroyed by fire and ash, seem to anticipate that fate. Pompeii died, yet through these walls it lives again. The villa became a microcosm of the Dionysian myth. From death comes life, from chaos comes creation. The frescoes, preserved by catastrophe, are themselves the ultimate ritual of rebirth. Standing inside the Villa of the Mysteries, visitors feel something no photograph can convey. The air seems alive, pulsing with the breath of antiquity. The red walls glow like living flesh, and painted eyes follow in silence. These frescoes are not just survivors, they redefine what ancient art could achieve. Long before Da Vinci or Caravaggio, unknown, Roman masters had already learned to bend, light-shape emotion, and give movement to stone. Their genius whispers from the past, proving that true artistry transcends time, merely waiting to be rediscovered beneath the ashes of history. Discovered more than a century ago in the quiet fields of North Yorkshire, England, the Neolithic chalk drums stand as some of the most enigmatic artifacts of prehistoric Britain. At first glance, they appear to be simple cylinders carved from white chalk, modest in size, delicate in texture, fragile against time. Yet beneath their pale surfaces lies an artistic and symbolic depth that continues to challenge our understanding of early human cognition, spirituality, and communication. They are not mere relics of the past, but messages coded, silent, and enduring from a civilization whose voice we can no longer hear. Each drum is a compact cylinder, carved from a single block of chalk, decorated with mesmerizing patterns, spirals, concentric circles, pairs of eyes, and interlaced lines, all meticulously etched by hands that lived over 5,000 years ago. These carvings display a mastery of symmetry and geometry that seems almost impossible for a Neolithic artisan using only primitive tools. The fine cuts, precise spacing, and rhythmic balance of each motif suggest not only aesthetic intent, but a deliberate, perhaps sacred language of symbols. But what language is this? And what were these drums meant to say? What do you think these mysterious carvings truly represent? A forgotten language, a spiritual code, or something entirely different? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theory. The first 3 drums were discovered in the late 19th century near the village of Folkestone, buried beside the bodies of children. Later, in the early 21st century, another even more beautifully decorated was unearthed in Burton Agnes, just miles away. Despite being carved from chalk, a material that weathers easily, these artifacts survived almost perfectly intact, protected within the tombs for millennia. To this day, they remain some of the most intricately decorated prehistoric objects ever found in the British Isles. They are called drums, but the name is misleading. There are no signs of skin cord or percussion marks. They were never used to produce sound. Instead, their surfaces whisper through symbols, geometric codes that scholars have yet to decipher. The repeating motifs, spirals, zigzags, crossed lines appear in other Neolithic monuments across Europe, from megalithic tombs in Ireland to stone carvings in Brittany. This shared visual vocabulary hints at an interconnected web of belief, a sacred symbolism understood by scattered communities across the ancient world. The spirals may represent the sun or the eternal cycle of life. The parallel lines could signify paths of spirits or rivers connecting worlds. The concentric circles recurring in Stonehenge and passage tombs might symbolize cosmic order or the movement of celestial bodies. Some believe the eyes carved into the drums were meant to watch over the dead, guiding them safely through the afterlife. But others suggest something far more complex, that these were not mere symbols of faith, but the fragments of an early form of proto-writing, a communication system lost to time. When studied under raking light, the carvings reveal an astonishing feature. Their patterns come alive with depth, creating the illusion of three-dimensionality. Shadows shift across the spirals, and grooves transform into moving forms. It is as if the artisans understood how light interacts with surface, how a single line could change meaning depending on the time of day. This mastery of visual perception raises an unsettling question. Were these people experimenting with what we might now call visual language? In the absence of written words, symbols became their vocabulary. Each line could represent a concept: sun, earth, water, rebirth, death. Arranged together, they might have told stories, expressed prayers, or recorded celestial observations. Some archaeologists speculate that the patterns encode lunar or solar cycles, perhaps serving as calendars or ritual aids. Others think they were mnemonic tools to remember chants, myths, or genealogies. Whatever their purpose, they embody the dawn of symbolic thought, the first flicker of humanity's attempt to make meaning eternal. And yet we cannot read them. Every theory remains speculative, every interpretation fragile. We look upon these carvings as one might stare at an unknown alphabet, tantalizingly structured, yet mute. What deepened the mystery was their context. Each drum was found in a child's grave, placed with care, beside small bones, as if to guard or accompany the young into another world. The association with childhood and death suggests something sacred, Perhaps these drums represented purity, renewal, or the cycle of life and rebirth. It is possible that each symbol carved upon the surface corresponded to a prayer, a protection charm, or an invocation of ancestral spirits. The very act of carving, laborious and precise, could itself have been ritualistic. In Neolithic belief systems, where stone was eternal and the world of the living intertwined with the world of spirits, inscribing symbols into chalk may have been an act of communication with the divine. Some researchers propose that these drums were ceremonial objects used by a priestly or shamanic class. The circular patterns may have been used in trance rituals where the spirals represented the journey of the soul into the other world. The recurring motifs across Britain on tombs, pottery, and stones suggest that the same symbolic language was widespread and deeply ingrained in the spiritual consciousness of early farmers and builders of megaliths. What if these patterns were not random decoration, but a precise system of measurement or cosmological order? In the early 21st century, researchers noticed that the circumference of the Folkestone drums corresponded to specific units of measurement used in Neolithic monuments, including Stonehenge. The ratio between the drum's diameters matched certain dimensions used in the layout of stone circles, suggesting that they might have functioned as calibration tools for building sacred architecture. If true, these artifacts could represent the earliest known attempt to encode mathematical or astronomical information into physical form, a way to store cosmic knowledge within an object. This theory aligns with the broader notion that Neolithic people possessed an advanced understanding of geometry and proportion long before written mathematics existed. And perhaps that is the key. The drums may not only speak through art, but through measurement. Each spiral, each line, each repeating form could correspond to numbers, cycles, or distances that governed how ancient monuments were built, a bridge between artistic expression and scientific calculation. Thousands of years later, when light touches the carved chalk once again, it is as if those ancient artisans are speaking to us not through sound, but through geometry, rhythm, and light. Their language bypasses words and speaks directly to perception. The Neolithic chalk drums remind us that meaning can exist beyond verbal communication, that humans, even at the dawn of civilization, sought to record the invisible time, faith, death, rebirth. Every groove holds a story. Every spiral is a thought frozen in stone. We can sense intention in every line, but we cannot translate it. This silent dialogue between the ancient and the modern continues unresolved. Today, the drums are housed in the British Museum, displayed under soft light to protect their fragile chalk. Visitors gaze at them through glass, often unaware that they stand before one of the oldest symbolic codes ever carved by human hands. The small, unassuming cylinders hold within them the soul of a vanished world, a civilization that could measure stars, honor its dead, and express cosmic truths without a single written word. What remains unsolved is what those symbols truly meant. Were they prayers or mathematical codes, ritual art or early astronomy, an alphabet of the gods, or the heartbeat of a child's burial rite? No one knows. Perhaps we never will. Yet that is precisely why they endure not as relics, but as riddles. Across the ancient world, water was never just water. It was a living force, a shimmering veil between the mortal world and the realm of gods. From the misty hot springs of Bath in Roman Britain, to the bubbling limestone pools of Hierapolis in Anatolia, to the quiet forest wells of the Celtic lands, humanity built sanctuaries around natural springs with a reverence that transcended geography, language, and time. These were not mere bathing sites. They were portals, sacred thresholds, where healing worship and mystery intertwined. Yet among all their wonders, one question still echoes across millennia. Who first built these places of power and why? What do you think were these sacred springs built by known ancient civilizations? Or do they hint at something far older now, lost to time? Share your theory in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Long before written religion, people looked upon springs with awe. They emerged from the earth unbidden, flowing endlessly, untouched by human hands, a gift, or perhaps a warning. Ancient myths spoke of water as the breath of creation, capable of giving life or taking it away. To touch it was to brush against something eternal. In Greece, every spring had its nymph, a divine guardian who could bless or curse. In Rome, these waters were consecrated to Sulis Minerva or other goddesses of wisdom and healing. Across Celtic lands, offerings of bronze, gold, and even human lives were cast into their depths, as if the water itself listened and remembered. Unlike temples of stone or fire, spring sanctuaries were shaped around the earth's pulse. Builders did not dominate the land. They conformed to it. Channels were carved to guide hot water through terraces, steam rooms, and pools lined with limestone and lead. The sanctuary of Sulis Minerva at Bath was one such marvel, a fusion of engineering and faith. Rising mist blurred the boundaries between flesh and spirit, making worship a sensory experience. Some sanctuaries even hid tunnels below their floors, designed to carry the priest's voice from underground so that visitors would hear the voice of the god echoing from beneath the earth. These were not coincidences of design. They were deliberate sacred technologies whose purpose we still do not fully grasp. When archaeologists dredged the springs of Bath, Bourbon-les-Bains, and Clermont, they found thousands of coins, tiny figurines, jewelry, and thin sheets of lead etched with words. The inscriptions were curses and prayers, pleas for justice, health, or vengeance. May he who stole my cloak never sleep until it is returned. The spring was judge, healer, and witness all at once. To throw something precious into its depths was not wasteful. It was a transaction with the divine. Each ripple of water carried the weight of human desperation, a language older than writing itself. For countless generations, the sacred spring sanctuaries served as places of both faith and medicine. Pilgrims came from distant lands, the sick, the wounded, and those burdened by despair, believing the sacred waters held divine power to heal what mortal hands could not. At Epidaurus, in Greece, the sanctuary of Asclepius became legendary. Visitors spent the night beside the spring, where dreams were said to bring visions of the god touching their wounds. Many awoke claiming to be cured, leaving offerings of gratitude behind. Modern studies revealed that these mineral springs did have therapeutic properties, but the ancients believed the true healing came from the spirit within the water. Over centuries, this union of purity, faith, and renewal gave rise to later rituals, including baptism, where water symbolized not just cleansing of the body, but rebirth of the soul itself. Across the ancient world, sacred springs appeared in cultures that never touched yet shared the same reverence. In Japan, Shinto priests guarded the steaming onsen as homes of divine spirits. In Peru, Inca shamans poured silver water to honor mountain gods believed to breathe through the clouds. In Anatolia, the Phrygians built shrines above boiling vents where vapor rose like the breath of the earth itself. None of these civilizations had contact, yet each saw water as the bridge between the human and the divine, a living force connecting body, spirit, and planet. This remarkable parallel suggests a universal truth that long before organized religion, humanity already felt the sacred pulse of water as the essence of life itself. Many sacred springs stand above geological fissures that release gas heat or strange vibrations. At Delphi, the oracle's trance was induced by vapors rising from the earth. At Hierapolis, carbon dioxide and steam emerge from the gate to hell, where animals die but priests survive. Modern acousticians have discovered that certain sanctuaries amplify low frequencies, created by moving water triggering trance-like states in listeners. To ancient minds, these effects were proof of divinity. To modern science, they reveal a genius of environmental design, humans crafting places that manipulate perception and emotion through nature itself. Archaeologists once believed the Greeks and Romans invented the sacred spring cults, but older evidence keeps surfacing. Beneath many classical sanctuaries lie earlier layers, primitive altars, carved stones, and votive pits, dating back to the Bronze Age or even earlier. At Bath, Celtic offerings predate Roman occupation by centuries. In central Italy, Etruscan sanctuaries with similar layouts were built before Rome existed. And in Anatolia, ancient Phrygian water shrines mirror the later Greco-Roman designs almost exactly. Who taught whom? Did each culture reinvent the sacred spring on its own? Or was there once an older civilization, forgotten, now that first sanctified the flow of living water? Some researchers suggest that the reverence for springs might trace back to the last ice age, when melting glaciers formed the first permanent sources of fresh water. To early humans, such places meant survival, and survival was divine. Others propose a lost network of ritual sites spanning Eurasia, linked not by empire, but by belief, a prehistoric spiritual system that viewed water as the essence of life's cycle. If so, the Greek nymphs, Roman goddesses, and Celtic spirits may all be late descendants of a single nameless archetype, the Mother of Waters, a primordial deity whose sanctuaries once dotted the ancient landscape. The architecture, the offerings, even the healing rituals could all be echoes of her cult, preserved, adapted, and reinterpreted by civilizations who no longer remembered her name. Modern science can explain the minerals, the heat, and the healing within these waters, but not the ancient instinct to kneel before them. Across continents and ages, humanity chose water as the voice of the divine, carving sanctuaries around springs instead of atop mountains. Perhaps because water moves, transforms, and returns, mirroring life itself. To the ancients, each bubbling spring was the Earth's heartbeat, proof that the planet lived and breathed. And today, at Bath, Delphi, or Hierapolis, the same mist still rises, guarding one unanswered question. Who first built these sacred springs, and what power guided their hands? Beneath the restless hum of modern London, where glass towers cast shadows over the ancient cobblestones of Leadenhall Market, lies one of the most extraordinary archaeological discoveries ever made in Britain, the remains of an ancient Roman basilica buried in silence for nearly 2 millennia. For centuries, it rested there, sealed beneath layers of earth and civilization, waiting to be rediscovered. When construction workers first struck the stone foundations in the early 21st century, no one could have imagined that they had just uncovered the largest known Roman basilica north of the Alps, a structure that would challenge our understanding of Roman Britain, religion, and power. But beyond the beauty of its masonry and the grandeur of its columns lies a deeper question that continues to haunt historians and archaeologists alike. Who truly built this basilica, and what was its ultimate purpose? Was this basilica a monument to imperial power, or a secret temple to the god Mithras, a meeting place for those who ruled both politics and faith from the shadows? Share your theory in the comments below, because after nearly 2,000 years, the mystery is still waiting to be solved. The story began during the excavation of a new financial complex near Leadenhall Street, the beating heart of modern London. What seemed like a routine dig quickly turned into a revelation, as workers unearthed fragments of limestone walls, vaulted corridors, and vast staircases descending into the earth. Archaeologists realized they were standing upon the Roman heart of Londinium, the city founded by the Romans around the year 47 after Christ. The basilica stretched nearly 100 meters in length and 50 meters in width, an immense scale for the time. It once towered above the Forum, the political and commercial center of Roman London. Its discovery painted a vivid picture of Londinium, not merely as a frontier settlement, but as a thriving metropolis of imperial importance, echoing the architectural ambition of Rome itself. Even by today's standards, the engineering of this basilica remains astonishing. Built with Kentish ragstone and lined with layers of Roman red bricks, its foundations were designed to endure the marshy ground near the River Thames. The Romans employed advanced techniques, drainage system substructures, reinforced with gravel and oak piles, to stabilize the weight of the basilica's towering columns. What stunned modern engineers was not just the precision, but the consistency of the design. It was clear that the builders followed a master plan, one orchestrated by skilled architects with access to imperial resources. Yet there were also local elements, the type of mortar, the mixture of materials, the decorative details that hinted at a hybrid of Roman and British craftsmanship, as if this basilica was not merely a colonial outpost, but a symbol of cultural fusion. As excavations continued deeper, the team found something unexpected. Beneath the public chambers and administrative halls lay a subterranean sanctuary, adorned with statues and altars dedicated to Mithras, the Roman god of light, loyalty, and cosmic struggle. This discovery transformed the narrative of the site entirely. What was thought to be a civic building might also have served as a temple for secret rites, a space where the faithful gathered in torchlight, whispering prayers in Latin beneath the earth. The Mithraeum, as it came to be known, was meticulously built, narrow corridors, ritual altars, and carved reliefs of Mithras slaying the sacred bull, a symbol of the eternal cycle of life and death. These architectural details suggested that the basilica was more than a political or commercial hub. It was also a place of mystery, ritual, and hidden power. Among the ruins, archaeologists discovered a trove of artifacts, delicate oil lamps, bronze votive offerings, carved gemstones, and even inscriptions bearing both Latin and Greek letters. One bronze amulet depicted Mithras emerging from an egg, surrounded by zodiac symbols, an image that connected Roman London to the esoteric cosmologies of the East. Carbon dating and coin evidence linked many of these relics to the reign of Emperor Hadrian in the 2nd century after Christ. Yet some artifacts didn't quite fit the timeline. Alloys forged with uncommon precision, possibly imported from regions as far as the Near East. These inconsistencies have only deepened the mystery. Was this basilica simply a Roman administrative center, or was it a conduit of spiritual and political influence reaching far beyond Britannia's borders? What makes this site even more remarkable is how it fits into the wider network of Roman London. Beneath the surface of the modern city lies a vast labyrinth of interconnected ruins, baths, temples, warehouses, and drainage tunnels, all linked by ancient passageways. The basilica stood at the very heart of this network, connected to both the riverfront and the Forum. Some scholars now suspect that Londinium may have had an entire underground district designed not only for trade and administration, but also for religious initiation ceremonies. The discovery of the Mithraeum within the basilica supports this theory, a hidden underworld, where the boundaries between politics and religion blurred, where loyalty to the empire was sworn not just in public squares, but in secret chambers lit by flame. By the late 3rd century, something changed. Layers of ash-charred wood and collapsed stone revealed that the basilica met a violent end. It may have been destroyed in a fire or deliberately dismantled when the Romans began to withdraw from Britain. Historical records fall silent. No Roman chronicler ever mentioned the Basilica of Londinium again. Some historians believe the site was abandoned during the economic crisis of the empire. Others, however, point to more symbolic reasons, that it was intentionally buried to hide relics, protect the followers of Mithras, or erase the traces of a forbidden cult when Christianity began to dominate Rome. Whatever the truth, the basilica disappeared from memory, and London grew over it, layer upon layer, until its story was forgotten beneath the feet of millions. Here lies the most enduring mystery. Despite decades of research, archaeologists still cannot identify who commissioned the basilica, nor what its true purpose was. Was it constructed by imperial decree, a project ordered by governors to display Rome's dominance in the far reaches of the empire, or could it have been built by local elites, Romanized Britons who blended imperial architecture with native beliefs to forge their own hybrid identity? Even stranger is the question of its dual nature, a basilica above ground and a temple below. No other known site from the Roman world follows this pattern so precisely. If the upper level served as a court of law or market hall, why would the lower level host secret ceremonies for an underground cult? Some archaeologists see this as evidence of political duality, an official facade, masking an esoteric inner circle, administrators by day, initiates by night. The symbolism of Mithras, who represented light conquering darkness, might have resonated deeply with Roman governors, struggling to maintain control over Britain's wild frontiers. Others propose a more radical theory that the basilica was not built by Romans alone. They suggest it may have been a collaborative creation between Roman engineers and local Celtic priests, merging imperial architecture with indigenous ritual traditions. In this view, the basilica becomes a monument to cultural negotiation, not domination, a sacred pact between conqueror and conquered. And yet no inscription, no builder's mark, no imperial decree survives to confirm who the architects were. Only the stones remain silent, massive, and hauntingly precise. Today, the ruins of the ancient basilica lie preserved beneath the Bloomberg Building in London. Visitors can descend into the London Mithraeum, where dim light, Latin chants, and traces of incense revive the aura of forgotten rituals. Here, modern Londoners stand, where Roman citizens once prayed, separated by 2 millennia, yet bound by wonder. The basilica, or what remains of it now, symbolizes the city's layered soul, a reminder that beneath every stone of progress, ancient mysteries still breathe, waiting for the day their builders' secrets are finally revealed. In the heart of the ancient land of Armenia, where rugged mountains guard millennia of stories and faith, stands a structure unlike any other Etchmiadzin cathedral, the oldest surviving Christian church in the world. Its weathered stones have witnessed the birth of nations, the fall of empires, and the evolution of human belief itself. For centuries, this cathedral has been revered not only as a sacred site, but as a symbol of the very moment humanity shifted from pagan gods to the worship of one divine creator. Yet beneath its holy aura lies a question that continues to haunt historians and theologians alike. Was Etchmiadzin truly the first Christian church ever built? Or is its origin far more complex, a story born from transformation, not creation? What do you think about this mystery? Could Etchmiadzin truly be the first Christian church in the world? Or is it the rebirth of an ancient forgotten temple? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The roots of Etchmiadzin trace back to the early 4th century, when Armenia became the first nation on earth to officially adopt Christianity as its state religion, long before the Roman Empire followed suit. The conversion was led by King Tiridates III and St. Gregory the Illuminator, a man whose visions changed the course of history. According to Armenian chronicles, Gregory dreamt of Christ descending from the heavens, wielding a golden hammer and striking the ground at a precise spot. The voice of the divine told him to build a church there, the place where heaven and earth would meet. That location became known as Etchmiadzin, meaning the descent of the only begotten. The legend gave birth to more than just a building. It gave birth to a nation's identity. For Armenians, Etchmiadzin was not simply a temple, it was the physical manifestation of divine will, a sacred bridge between the mortal and the eternal. Every stone laid there was said to carry spiritual significance, placed in accordance with a vision that transcended the boundaries of human design. Modern archaeological investigations reveal a fascinating paradox. Beneath the cathedral's Christian foundations lie the remains of an older pagan temple. The stones whisper of deities long forgotten. Aramazd, the father god, and Anahit, the goddess of fertility, once worshipped by Armenians before the arrival of Christianity. Some archaeologists believe that Etchmiadzin was built directly atop this ancient shrine, reusing its stones and aligning with its original layout. This revelation gives rise to an unsettling question. Was Etchmiadzin the first Christian church, or was it a deliberate act of transformation, where an older faith was reshaped into a new one? If so, the cathedral might not represent the dawn of Christianity, but rather the twilight of paganism, a moment when the old gods were buried beneath the altar of a new world. Even without its spiritual legends, Etchmiadzin's architecture defies explanation. Constructed over 17 centuries ago, its design already shows advanced geometric symmetry and a domed structure that would not appear in Western churches for many centuries. The stones are cut with such precision that in certain sections no mortar was used at all, an engineering feat reminiscent of Incan or Egyptian methods. The mixture of Byzantine Persian and local Armenian influences suggests that its builders drew from many cultures, blending them into a design that predated formal Byzantine architecture. Was this divine inspiration or evidence of lost architectural knowledge passed down through secret guilds of masons and temple builders? Even the interior, with its frescoes, light shafts, and spatial balance, evokes the sensation of stepping into a three-dimensional prayer where architecture itself becomes a form of worship. Inside Etchmiadzin lies a treasury of sacred artifacts, among them relics believed to include a fragment of the true cross and the spear of Longinus, said to have pierced the body of Christ on the cross. For centuries, these relics have been kept under strict secrecy, only displayed during rare religious ceremonies. Rumors persist that other relics remain sealed within underground chambers, along with ancient manuscripts written in undeciphered scripts, possibly remnants of pre-Christian mysticism. If true, these hidden treasures could rewrite the understanding of early Christianity's development in the East. Yet the Armenian Apostolic Church, guardian of the site, remains silent. The secrecy only deepens the aura of mystery surrounding Etchmiadzin, blurring the lines between faith and archaeology. Through earthquakes, invasions, and countless wars, Etchmiadzin has endured. The Arabs, Mongols, Ottomans, and Persians all passed through Armenia, yet the cathedral never fully collapsed. In every reconstruction, the core of the structure survived, as if protected by something beyond stone and mortar. Engineers studying the building note that its proportions disperse seismic energy, allowing it to withstand tremors that destroyed entire towns. But for the faithful, its survival is not physics. It is proof of divine protection, the echo of Christ's hammer still resonating in its foundations. Here lies the great mystery that has divided scholars for generations. Many sources, from ancient Armenian texts to early Christian historians, declare that Etchmiadzin is the first cathedral in history. It was, they argue, the first church ever built after a nation officially embraced Christianity. However, this definition leaves room for doubt. Some researchers argue that older Christian worship sites may have existed in Syria, Rome, or Cappadocia, even before Armenia's conversion. The Dura Europos church in Syria, for example, dates to around 233 years after Christ, earlier than Etchmiadzin. Yet others counter that those were private house churches, not formal cathedrals. Etchmiadzin, they insist, was the first monumental structure built specifically as a national Christian temple, the prototype for all that followed. But the puzzle deepens. If Etchmiadzin was constructed atop a pagan foundation, can it still be called the first Christian church? Is it the beginning of a new era or the transformation of an older hidden one? Some archaeologists have detected alignments with solstices and lunar cycles, patterns characteristic of pre-Christian temples, implying that the builders may have consciously fused old cosmological knowledge with new theological purpose. This blend of worlds, pagan and Christian, ancient and divine, makes Etchmiadzin a living contradiction, a monument that cannot be easily categorized. Its stones seem to tell two stories at once, one about faith's birth and another about humanity's unbroken continuity of belief, reshaped but never erased. To Armenians, Etchmiadzin is more than architecture, it is the soul of the nation. Through exile, genocide, and diaspora, this cathedral has remained the spiritual anchor of a scattered people. Its bell tower and golden dome are not merely reminders of religion, but of survival, the unyielding endurance of a civilization that stood at the crossroads of empires and refused to vanish. Even today, when pilgrims enter the cathedral, they speak of a strange vibration, a hum that seems to emanate from the very ground, as if the site itself remembers every prayer whispered there since the dawn of Christian history. UNESCO recognizes Etchmiadzin as a World Heritage Site, yet its true story remains beyond the reach of history. Untranslated ancient manuscripts suggest that the church's original layout may follow a form of sacred geometry aligned with constellations in the sky. Some scholars believe that the golden hammer from Gregory's vision was not merely symbolic, but evidence of a real cosmic event, perhaps a meteor strike or an ancient ritual of light. Etchmiadzin stands between legend and archaeology, between heaven and earth, as a mystery still unsolved. The mystery remains: was Etchmiadzin truly the first Christian church, or the rebirth of something far older? If it was the first, it marks the beginning of Christian architecture, the seed from which faith took form in stone. But if built upon a pagan temple, it becomes a symbol of transformation, where ancient worship didn't vanish but evolved. Etchmiadzin carries the memory of two worlds, one buried in earth and fire, one rising toward the heavens, and between them a question that still echoes through time. Buried beneath the golden sands of northern Peru, at the sacred site of El Brujo, lies one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries in South America, the tomb of a woman whose power defied the beliefs of her time. Known to history as the Lady of Tao, or the Moche Queen, her resting place is a silent riddle carved in gold blood and symbols of divine authority. But even after decades of study, one question remains unanswered. Who was she truly? Do you think the Lady of Tao was truly a mortal queen or a living goddess, forgotten by time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In the year 1996, a team of Peruvian archaeologists, led by Regulo Franco, uncovered a burial chamber unlike any they had ever seen. Hidden beneath centuries of desert sand, wrapped in layers of fine cotton and cinnabar dust, was the perfectly preserved body of a woman adorned with jewelry, weapons, and power symbols usually reserved for Moche kings. The Moche civilization, which flourished between the 1st and 8th centuries after Christ, was believed to be patriarchal. Their murals and ceramics depicted male warriors, priests, and rulers, men, commanding armies, offering sacrifices and receiving divine blessings. Yet in this tomb, the hierarchy was turned upside down. The artifacts, the symbols, and the position of the body revealed something revolutionary. The supreme leader of this ancient world was a woman. Her body, small, slender, yet commanding, remained astonishingly intact after 17 centuries. Scientists found her skin marked with dark, intricate tattoos, snakes coiling around her arms, spiders and jaguars on her hands, and sacred moche motifs etched on her fingers. These tattoos, preserved by the arid desert air and the mineral-rich cinnabar, told a story beyond life and death. To the moche, such tattoos were not decoration. They were symbols of divine power, each representing an animal spirit that guarded the soul. In her case, the collection of motifs suggested she embodied both the protector and destroyer, a figure of cosmic balance between fertility and sacrifice. Surrounding her were hundreds of ceremonial artifacts: golden necklaces, silver nose rings, copper staffs, shell ornaments, and two majestic crowns, one symbolizing earthly power, the other celestial dominion. Gilded clubs, ritual knives, tumi, and fine ceramics depicted scenes of battle and sacrifice. Everything in the chamber screamed authority, yet it was not the authority of a queen in the ordinary sense. This was the authority of a divine intermediary, a being who could speak to gods and command men alike. Her burial wealth rivaled that of Egypt's pharaohs, and her symbolism aligned her not only with leadership, but with the cosmic order itself. Among the objects was something stranger, a small statue made of clay and wood crafted to resemble her. It rested beside the body, dressed in miniature replicas of her ornaments. What was its purpose? Some believe it was a spiritual substitute, a vessel meant to carry her essence into the afterlife. Others suggest it was a decoy, a ritual trick to confuse evil spirits or to trick death itself. To this day, the meaning of that statue is one of the most debated aspects of the find-raising questions about how the moche viewed the continuity of the soul. The moche were known for their elaborate rituals involving human sacrifice. Surrounding the tomb were tumi knives, jars depicting beheadings, and remnants of offerings, perhaps of warriors who had fallen in battle. It seems the Lady of Chao presided over these ceremonies not as a passive priestess, but as the one who wielded power over life and death. Her presence symbolized divine order. Her decisions ensured the continuation of cosmic harmony. This connection to ritual blood and the fertility of the land made her not only a ruler, but a living bridge between the mortal and the divine, a human who had become a deity in her people's eyes. Yet even the divine must perish. Studies of her bones revealed she died young, between 25 and 30 years old, likely from complications of childbirth or infection. Her death must have been a devastating event for the moche who buried her with reverence and terror. The grandeur of her funeral, the architecture, the treasures, the painted murals suggested the entire region mourned. Her death may even have caused a shift in religious and political structures, as later moche sites revealed changes in leadership and ritual form. Modern imaging has revealed even more beneath her skin, faint traces of symbols invisible to the naked eye. These markings match the iconography found on moche ceramics and murals, leading some to believe that her tattoos formed a spiritual map, a guide through the afterlife, much like the Egyptian Book of the Dead, but written in living flesh. If true, the Lady of Chao carried with her not just status and beauty, but the codified theology of her people, imprinted onto her very body, an eternal scroll of faith. And yet, despite all the artifacts, despite DNA analysis and decades of research, no one knows her real name. Was she a high priestess chosen from birth, a queen who united rival moche clans under divine rule, or perhaps a deified mortal whose power blurred the boundary between human and God. Her DNA shows no direct link to any known Machi rulers. There are no inscriptions naming her. The murals around her tomb depict rituals, but no specific individual. It is as if the Moche erased her name intentionally, as though it was too sacred to speak. Some scholars propose that Senora de Chao might have been the embodiment of Ayapayak, the Moche's principal deity, the decapitator god. Her tattoos of fanged creatures and serpents mirror his imagery, suggesting she may have been seen as his earthly counterpart. Others argue she could have been a warrior queen elevated by conquest and blood, whose memory was mythologized after her death. But one hypothesis haunts the imagination most, that the Lady of Chao was not just one person, but a title passed down through generations of powerful women, each preserving the rituals, the knowledge, and the symbols of the original queen. If so, her tomb may be the first physical trace of an unrecorded female lineage of Moche's spiritual rulers, a dynasty erased by time, remembered only in whispers of gold and bone. To this day, the absence of her name echoes louder than any discovery. It turns her into both a historical figure and a legend, a queen whose identity remains locked in silence. Her tomb has changed how we see ancient Peru. The discovery shattered assumptions about gender roles in pre-Columbian societies. It proved that the Moche world was far more complex, more layered, and more spiritually fluid than historians once believed. And beyond the scientific realm, her mystery has captivated millions. A woman mummified in the desert, tattooed with gods buried with gold, yet stripped of a name. She is both an artifact and a myth, suspended between human memory and divine enigma. Today, her preserved remains rest in the Museo Chao, enclosed in glass, surrounded by holographic reconstructions that restore her face from bone to living skin. Visitors stare into her reconstructed eyes and see the echo of a power that once ruled an empire without leaving a single written word. She remains there, silent, timeless, a queen, without a name, a goddess, without a prayer, yet more alive than ever in the imagination of our age. The Moche Queen's tomb is not merely an archaeological site. It is a mirror into humanity's oldest questions. Who are we when the dust settles? What endures when the name fades? Perhaps the Lady of Chao was never meant to be identified. Perhaps her silence is deliberate, a message from the past that greatness needs no name. Her spirit lingers between the realms of myth and science, reminding us that not every mystery exists to be solved, because sometimes the unknown itself is what keeps history alive. Under the blazing Egyptian sun, they still rise, silent, perfect, defiant. Carved from single blocks of unyielding granite, the obelisks pierce the sky like frozen rays of light, each one aligned with the journey of the sun god himself. Thousands of years ago, these colossal monuments were born not merely as symbols of devotion, but as acts of impossible engineering. For behind their serene beauty lies a riddle that no empire, no scientist, no machine has ever truly solved. How did ancient hands move the mountains? How did they lift the weight of eternity and set it upright against the pull of gravity itself? Could the ancient Egyptians have known a technique we've completely forgotten? Share your theory in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Every obelisk began its life in Aswan, where the hardest granite in Egypt slept beneath the sun. The quarries still bear the scars of ancient tools, and among them lies a colossal enigma, the unfinished obelisk. Carved directly from the bedrock, it measures more than 40 meters long and would have weighed nearly 1,000 tons if completed. It cracked during extraction, and so it was abandoned. Yet even in its failure, it whispers of an almost superhuman ambition. The very idea that humans over 3,000 years ago could conceive of moving such a stone defies logic. The process began with workers carving deep trenches around the block, using dolerite pounders stones harder than the granite itself. They struck day after day, year after year, to free the monolith from the bedrock. But once the obelisk was detached, the true ordeal began. It had to be transported more than 100 kilometers north to Thebes or Heliopolis, through desert sand and river, and not a single piece of it could break. Modern engineers have struggled to imagine how this was done without steel cranes' wheels strong enough to bear hundreds of tons or hydraulic systems. The most accepted theory suggests that the Egyptians dragged the obelisks on massive wooden sledges, pouring water or oil onto the sand to reduce friction. Reliefs found in the tomb of Jehuti-Hotep show hundreds of men pulling a statue on a sledge while one man stands at the front, pouring water before it. But those depictions represent statues much smaller than obelisks, and the physics of scaling that process up to hundreds of tons becomes almost impossible. Even with the most generous calculations, the number of men required would exceed what could physically fit around the object. Then came the next impossible stage, moving the obelisk onto barges to float down the Nile. The Nile was the ancient highway of Egypt, but even so, the logistics boggle the mind. A single barge could not support the weight of such a stone without capsizing. Some historians propose that the Egyptians used twin barges tied together, forming a floating cradle for the obelisk. Others suggest that they built specialized wooden frames reinforced with papyrus ropes and buoyant timbers. Yet even with these designs, the question remains, how did they slide the stone onto the boats in the first place without sinking them? When the obelisks reached their destinations, Luxor, Karnak, or Heliopolis, the challenge became even more daunting. The Egyptians had to raise each one vertically, align it with cosmic precision, and set it perfectly on its base, all without breaking it. Ancient inscriptions describe the dedication of obelisks to the sun god Ra, but none record the method of erection. No blueprints, no manuals, no step-by-step accounts. Only silent monuments, left standing for millennia, defying gravity and explanation. Modern experiments have tried to reconstruct the feat. In the 20th century, engineers in Italy and Egypt attempted to raise small-scale replicas using ramps levers and counterweights. Even with modern understanding of physics, they faced constant failures. Stones cracked, supports collapsed, and the required manpower proved overwhelming. The truth seems to mock our confidence in progress. With cranes, steel, and machinery, we still cannot perfectly reproduce what ancient Egyptians accomplished with copper tools and rope. Perhaps the real secret of the obelisks was not brute strength, but a profound understanding of nature's invisible laws, a mastery of balance, pressure, and weight distribution that we no longer possess. Some modern engineers believe the Egyptians used water and sand as natural machines, tools of precision rather than power. In one hypothesis, workers constructed massive pits filled with sand, placed the obelisk horizontally above them, and then slowly released the sand through narrow tunnels, allowing gravity to lower the stone gently and evenly into position. Others imagined spiral ramps built around artificial sand mounds where the obelisk was tilted upright in stages, its immense mass controlled through the gradual removal of sand and the counterweight of earth. These methods would require astonishing foresight, coordination, and mathematical skill, proof that the Egyptians may have understood physics intuitively centuries before it was ever written down. Ingenious, elegant, and still unproven. Beyond the boundaries of traditional archaeology lies a realm of daring speculation, where science and mystery collide. Some researchers suggest that the ancient Egyptians might have possessed technologies now lost to time, the ability to use sound vibrations to lift stone, or even manipulate magnetic fields in ways modern physics has yet to rediscover. Though these ideas lack tangible proof, they persist because the scale of ancient achievements so profoundly challenges our understanding. When mathematics and machinery fall short of explanation, the human mind reaches for what lies beyond, a reminder that the past may still guard secrets far more advanced than we dare to believe. It's worth remembering that even the Romans, more than 1,000 years later, faced nearly insurmountable challenges when transporting Egyptian obelisks to their empire. The obelisk of Thutmose III, now standing in Rome, required an entire fleet of ships, hundreds of engineers, and months of perilous navigation. When one considers that the Egyptians accomplished similar feats without iron or mechanical advantage, the word impossible begins to lose meaning. What motivated them to attempt it in the first place? These were not mere decorations. Each obelisk was a symbol of divine connection, a petrified beam of sunlight linking heaven and earth. Pharaohs ordered them to proclaim their power and to honor the sun god Ra. The higher the obelisk, the closer it reached toward the divine. But perhaps it was also a declaration of knowledge, a silent message carved in stone. We can move mountains. And yet after thousands of years, we still cannot fully decode that message. We walk among the remains of temples, we measure every angle and tool mark, and still the question echoes louder than ever. How did they do it? How did humans with simple tools accomplish what seems to defy every law of modern engineering? Was it genius, faith, or something we have yet to understand? The obelisks of Egypt stand today in cities far from their birthplace: Rome, London, Paris, New York, each a trophy of human willpower. But while modern cranes hoisted them into place centuries later, none of those efforts can match the mystery and precision of the originals. Every time sunlight strikes their peaks, it's as if the ancients are whispering across time, reminding us that there was once a civilization that mastered stone spirit and science in ways we can scarcely comprehend. Perhaps the greatest achievement of ancient Egypt was not simply in building these monuments, but in ensuring that their mystery would endure forever. For as long as we stand in their shadow and ask how the legacy of their brilliance remains alive, a challenge from the past that our future may never truly answer. High in the misty heart of the Andes, the stones of the Inca still whisper a challenge to time itself. Carved with impossible precision, these colossal walls, from Sacsayhuaman to Ollantaytambo, have endured centuries of earthquakes without a single crack. There is no mortar binding them, no cement holding them in place, and yet they fit so tightly together that not even a human hair can slip between the stones. How could a civilization without iron wheels or written plans achieve such perfection? Some call it genius, others call it a mystery carved in stone, a puzzle that even modern science cannot solve. What do you think? Did the Inca uncover a lost technology, or were they simply masters of patience and precision? Share your theory in the comments below. At first glance, the Inca walls appear chaotic stones of all sizes with irregular shapes and uneven edges. But step closer and the illusion of chaos vanishes. Every block fits its neighbors with a precision that modern masons still struggle to replicate. There is no standard pattern. Each stone seems to have been uniquely crafted to match the surrounding ones, like a giant three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. This design allows the structures to breathe, with the earth shifting slightly during earthquakes without breaking. When the ground trembles, the walls move as one living body, absorbing and releasing energy instead of resisting it. That is why, while Spanish colonial buildings collapsed, the Inca walls remained. Each stone in the Inca walls is like a piece of nature's giant puzzle, rough in texture, yet astonishingly precise. Some blocks weigh several tons, others over 100, but all fit together so perfectly that no gap can be seen. Many corners are gently curved, embracing the stones beside them, as if each piece had once been softened and fused before hardening again. When sunlight strikes at an angle, those curved surfaces shimmer like ripples over stone, giving the impression that the wall itself is breathing. It is this organic geometry that allows Inca walls to absorb seismic shocks and endure countless earthquakes. These structures were not merely built, they were engineered, sculpted, and brought to life according to a principle that humanity still struggles to comprehend. This is where the enigma deepens. The Inca civilization possessed no iron, no steel, no advanced metal tools. Their hammers and chisels were made of bronze or harder stones, materials far inferior to the granite diorite and andesite they shaped. These rocks are so hard that even modern diamond-tipped equipment struggles to cut them cleanly. And yet the surfaces of many Inca blocks are polished to near perfection, with smooth edges, curved faces, and angles that align with sub-millimeter accuracy. Some archaeologists propose that the Incas used endless patience, grinding the surfaces together for days or weeks until they fit. Others believe they used wooden wedges soaked in water to split stone by pressure. But none of these explanations account for the rounded corners, the concave depressions, and the melting-like textures visible in many sites. The surfaces sometimes appear as if the stone itself had been softened or even liquefied, molded like clay, and left to cool. This has given rise to one of the most controversial ideas in Andean archaeology, the hypothesis of soft stone technology. According to this theory, the ancient builders discovered a natural chemical or biological method to temporarily soften hard rock. Some researchers following Inca legends mention a sacred plant known as pito pito or quack-a-lulu, whose juice was said to melt stone like wax. There are also references from early Spanish chroniclers who heard from local priests that the walls were grown, not built. Modern experiments with natural acids and plant-based solvents have achieved partial results, softening limestone or sandstone, but never granite or andesite. Still, the myth persists. Could it be that the Inca inherited a forgotten technology from a civilization even older than their own? Something that allowed them to manipulate matter in ways lost to modern science. When one looks closely at the stones of Sacsayhuaman, certain patterns repeat indentations that resemble sockets, small protrusions that look like handles, and symmetrical depressions on adjoining blocks, as though some unknown instrument once gripped, rotated, or heated the surface. These marks do not align with hammer blows or primitive chiseling. Instead, they suggest a process of controlled alteration, perhaps heat vibration or chemical change. Some geologists argue these are natural features of weathering. Others disagree, pointing out that the same textures appear only at the contact points, the exact areas where two stones interlock. It is almost as if the material was softened precisely where it needed to fit. The possibility of ancient thermal or vibrational shaping remains speculative, but no one can explain how so many massive stones could be cut and joined with such accuracy using the known tools of that era. The transportation of the Incas' massive stones remains one of archaeology's most baffling mysteries. At Ollantaytambo, some blocks weigh over 200 tons, quarried from sites more than 10 kilometers away across steep mountains, deep rivers, and rugged valleys. The Inca had no wheels, no beasts of burden strong enough, and left no traces of ramps or lifting mechanisms. Theories suggesting they rolled the stones on logs or dragged them with ropes quickly collapse under scrutiny. The Andes is uneven, and there are no trees large or straight enough to serve as rollers. And yet somehow these stones were transported, lifted, rotated into position, and fitted with absolute precision. The combination of inhuman accuracy and impossible logistics turns the Inca walls into one of the greatest engineering enigmas in history, forcing us to wonder, was this truly a triumph of human effort or a remnant of knowledge long lost to the modern world? Earthquakes are frequent in the Andes, and yet the Inca walls have survived hundreds of them with minimal damage. The secret lies in the irregular design. The stones are tilted slightly inward, forming a trapezoidal shape that stabilizes the wall. Their joints are flexible. When the ground shakes, the stones wiggle but never fall. The energy of the tremor dissipates through the countless joints and curves. It is a principle modern engineers only rediscovered in the 20th century, calling it seismic flexibility. The Incas knew it centuries earlier without formulas, only by intuition and experience. The precision in Inca architecture was not merely for engineering, it reflected a profound cosmic worldview. Many of their structures were aligned with celestial events, such as solstices, equinoxes, and the cycles of the moon. To the Inca, architecture was an extension of the heavens, and every stone in their walls was a star embodied upon the earth. The city of Cusco, the heart of the empire, was designed in the shape of a sacred puma, symbolizing power, courage, and protection. Arches, stairways, and linear pathways across the city were precisely oriented toward the rising and setting of the sun, allowing light to perform ceremonies of shadow and illumination on sacred days. To the Inca, stone was a living being called Huaca, a divine spirit residing within matter. They did not see stone as something to conquer, but as a companion in the act of creation, uniting humans, earth, sky, and stars into one harmonious whole. Centuries have passed, yet modern science still cannot recreate how the Inca fitted their massive stones with less than a millimeter of deviation, without mortar or metal tools. Did they possess a lost technology or inherit knowledge from a forgotten civilization? Whatever the truth, the walls remain silent, hiding their secrets within every joint of stone. As the sun sets over Sacsayhuaman, light glimmers on the granite surface like polished metal, echoing a timeless question. How did the Inca cut, move, and fit these stones without leaving a single trace? Among the windswept steppes of Eurasia, beneath the frozen soil and endless grasslands, archaeologists have uncovered one of the most extraordinary burial traditions of the ancient world, the chariot burials of the Scythians. These graves, belonging to a nomadic people who once ruled the steppe from the Black Sea to Siberia, reveal a world of spiritual grandeur, violent rituals, and mysteries that still defy explanation after more than 2 millennia. The Scythians were known to the Greeks as fierce horseman archers who seemed born in the saddle, a civilization without cities, but with unshakable pride. Yet beneath their image as wild nomads lay a culture of remarkable sophistication. Their burial sites, discovered across Ukraine, southern Russia, and Central Asia, show not chaos, but order, symbolism, and meticulous ritual. And at the heart of these rituals lies a haunting image, a warrior or noble lying in eternal slumber beside his horses and his war chariot, ready to ride once more beyond the veil of death. Were these chariot burials made for kings, warriors, or something far more spiritual? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you believe truly lies behind this ancient mystery. The chariot in Scythian belief was not merely a tool of war, it was a sacred vessel. When a chieftain or elite warrior died, his people would construct a deep burial chamber, often beneath a grand Kurgan mound, rising above the steppe. Inside they placed not only the body of the deceased, but also his 2- or 4-wheeled chariot, accompanied by horses, sacrificed and positioned as if ready to charge forward. These horses were not symbolic figures carved from stone or clay, they were real animals, carefully adorned with harnesses of gold and silver, their bodies arranged with ceremonial precision. Some still wore their bits, reins, and decorative gear. Even after thousands of years, traces of their braided manes and preserved leather straps remain. It is as though in the Scythian mind, the chariot was the key to crossing into the next world, and the horses were the sacred beings that would carry their master through the eternal plains of the afterlife. When these tombs were first uncovered in places like the Altai Mountains, the Dnieper River Valley, and the plains of Kazakhstan, archaeologists were stunned. The burial chambers were filled with gold jewelry, intricate weaponry, and richly decorated objects. Swords with zoomorphic hilts, golden plaques depicting griffins and stags, and delicate fabrics embroidered with animal motifs. Each artifact told a story of power, of identity, of myth. The Scythians believed that animals represented spiritual guardians, the stag symbolized rebirth, the eagle divine vision, and the panther ferocity in battle. The golden ornaments that once adorned the warrior's clothing and his horses shimmered like captured sunlight, a reflection of divine favor. But alongside these treasures lay something darker, the evidence of human and animal sacrifice. Some graves contained the bodies of attendants, wives, or servants, all buried alongside the main figure. In some cases, the skeletons were found in sitting positions, their necks broken as if killed moments before burial. Greek historian Herodotus, writing in the 5th century before the Common Era, left one of the most chilling accounts of Scythian funerary customs. When a great king died, he wrote his body was embalmed and carried across the land so that every tribe could pay their respects. A year later, a great ceremony was held. Dozens of horses and servants were sacrificed, and their bodies placed around the royal tomb, mounted upright to mimic the living guard of a monarch in death. Modern excavations have confirmed much of Herodotus's story. In several sites, archaeologists found circles of sacrifice horses arranged around a central burial mound as if standing watch. The precision and repetition of these arrangements suggest that the Scythians practiced a highly organized, almost religiously codified rite of death, a ritual that fused brutality with transcendence. In the remote Altai Mountains, the permafrost preserved several Scythian tombs in astonishing detail. The Pazyryk burials, as they are known, have yielded mummified bodies with tattoos still visible on their skin, depicting mythic beasts, creatures that blended the bodies of stags, lions, and eagles. The chariots themselves, though made of wood, survived in the ice-spoked wheels, axle parts, and leather harnesses perfectly intact. For the first time, archaeologists could see not only what Scythian chariots looked like, but how they were arranged in the tombs. Each wheel pointed eastward, the direction of the rising sun symbol of rebirth. Each horse's head faced the same way. Every detail spoke of a belief in cosmic order, the rhythm of life, death, and renewal. The chariot burials reveal that the Scythians were far from primitive. They possessed a structured hierarchy where only the elite king's chiefs and perhaps high-ranking warriors were buried with such grandeur. Yet in several tombs, archaeologists made a startling discovery. Some of these chariot burials belonged to women. These women were not buried as passive companions, but as warriors. They were found with bows, quivers of arrows, spears, and battle gear. Their bones bore signs of combat-healed fractures, arrow wounds, and strong upper body musculature. It was undeniable these women had fought, commanded, and died as soldiers. This discovery ignited an age-old debate. Were these the legendary Amazons of Greek myth? Ancient Greek writers often described a mysterious tribe of female warriors living beyond the Black Sea, fierce horsewomen who rivaled men in battle. Could the Scythian chariot burials be the real-world echoes of that legend? Or were these women part of a spiritual class, priestesses entrusted with the sacred chariot rituals? This is where the greatest mystery lies. Who were the people buried with these chariots? Were they all elite warriors and nobles, or something far more symbolic? Some scholars believe that the chariot itself represented the sun's vehicle, and those buried with it were chosen as the divine riders who would escort the sun god across the sky. Others suggest the chariot was a symbol of royal power, and its burial was an act of sealing that power away, preventing it from being misused by the living. Then there is the question of the women. If they were warriors, their presence rewrites much of what we thought we knew about gender and warfare in the ancient world. If they were priestesses, then their graves hint at a lost Scythian religion, centered around solar deities and celestial journeys, a faith that left no written word, only golden relics and the silent geometry of burial mounds. And finally, why destroy something so valuable? To bury a functional chariot, the peak of Scythian craftsmanship, along with living horses and gold, was to sacrifice immense wealth. For a nomadic people who prized mobility, this act seems paradoxical. It suggests that for the Scythians, death was not an end, but a continuation, a passage that required all the instruments of earthly glory. As the winds sweep over the empty steppes, the Scythian kurgans still rise like small mountains against the horizon. Beneath them lie the silent chariots, the horses frozen in motion, and the warriors, men and women alike, waiting for the call of the eternal hunt. Their world has vanished, their language lost, yet their graves speak a language all humans understand, a yearning for power, for remembrance, for a journey that never ends. And somewhere among those bones, gold trinkets and wooden wheels, lies the haunting question that refuses to die. Who truly rests beside these chariots? A king, a warrior, a priestess, or perhaps a spirit meant to ride forever through the unending steppe between life and death? Beneath the blazing sun of the ancient Mediterranean, where golden waves kissed the shores of Alexandria, there once rose a tower so tall it seemed to touch the heavens, the legendary lighthouse of Pharos. To approaching sailors, its fiery crown was a promise of safety. To kings and scholars, it was a symbol of mankind's mastery over nature itself. Built more than 2 millennia ago, this towering marvel defied the limits of its time, a beacon of science, ambition, and mystery. Even today, as its stones sleep beneath the sea, the lost Roman lighthouse of Pharos still calls out through history, daring us to uncover how ancient hands built the impossible. Do you think ancient engineers truly mastered techniques we can't replicate today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theory about how they built the impossible. This lighthouse was built around the 3rd century BCE under the reign of Ptolemy II, Philadelphus of Egypt. At that time, Alexandria was the beating heart of the Greco-Roman world, a hub of philosophy, astronomy, mathematics, and maritime trade. But despite its grandeur, ships approaching the coast faced deadly risks from reef fog and unpredictable tides. That is why Ptolemy II ordered the construction of a massive tower on the small island of Pharos, a beacon to guide sailors safely home. The word Pharos later became a generic term for all lighthouses around the world, a linguistic legacy that endures to this day. According to ancient records, Pharos stood between 110 and 140 meters tall, equivalent to a modern 30-story building. Its structure was remarkably unique, a solid square base like a fortress, an octagonal middle section rising toward the heavens, and a cylindrical tower at the top where an immense flame burned day and night. Inside, a spiraling ramp allowed horses to haul timber and fuel to the summit. The design was a perfect fusion of Greek geometry, Egyptian craftsmanship, and Roman organizational brilliance, a masterpiece thousands of years ahead of its time. At the tower's peak, a massive bronze mirror reflected the firelight, reportedly visible from over 50 kilometers out to sea. Some Arabic manuscripts claim that the reflected rays were powerful enough to burn enemy ships, a kind of primitive optical weapon. While modern scholars often dismiss this as exaggeration, no one can deny that such an advanced system of light projection was extraordinary for its era. Pharos was more than a navigational structure. It was a monument to power and intellect. From its base, one could see the great port of Alexandria, where ships from across the ancient world gathered from Greece, Rome, Carthage, India, and even the far reaches of the Red Sea. Merchants, philosophers, and scholars arriving at the harbor gazed up at its blazing light, a symbol of civilization and prosperity. Alongside the Library of Alexandria, the lighthouse stood as one of the two great pillars of ancient knowledge illuminating the glory of the Ptolemaic age. Yet like all wonders, its magnificence did not last forever. For centuries, Pharos endured storms and wars until a series of devastating earthquakes between the 11th and 14th centuries finally brought it down. The enormous stones crashed into the sea, and silence fell over the centuries. When the Mamluks built the Qaitbay fortress in the 15th century, they reused those very same stones as if history had been reborn from the ruins. Still, even in its destruction, the legend of Pharos continued to echo across the Mediterranean. In 1994, a French archaeological team, led by Jean-Yves Empereur, discovered hundreds of granite blocks, statues of pharaohs and massive bronze fragments beneath the Bay of Alexandria. Some of these artifacts bore architectural markings identical to Arabic descriptions of the ancient lighthouse. These discoveries suggest that the true remains of pharaohs still rest quietly beneath the cold waters of the Mediterranean, awaiting rediscovery. Although a modern three-dimensional reconstruction project was once proposed, technical and political obstacles have kept it forever suspended between legend and history. No mystery surrounding the ancient world captivates the imagination quite like the construction of the Lighthouse of Pharos. More than 2,000 years ago, engineers somehow managed to erect a tower over 140 meters tall on a small island surrounded by shifting sands and restless waves without cranes, steel, or modern tools. How could such a feat be possible? Each stone of the lighthouse weighed several tons, yet these colossal blocks were transported across water from the mainland to Pharos Island with astonishing precision. Some scholars propose that ancient builders constructed a massive causeway or a floating wooden bridge, allowing oxen and workers to drag the stones during low tide. Others envision vast wooden cranes and pulley systems powered by counterweights, a technology centuries ahead of its time. But even these explanations struggle to justify how they lifted and aligned thousands of heavy blocks with perfect balance against fierce sea winds. Perhaps the secret lies in a lost combination of mathematics, geometry, and sheer human ingenuity knowledge that vanished with the collapse of Alexandria's golden age, leaving only questions shimmering beneath the waves. The mystery was not just about weight, it was about structural stability. With such height and constant sea winds battering it, even a small error could have caused immediate collapse. Yet pharaohs stood firm for over 16 centuries. This indicates that ancient engineers possessed deep knowledge of balanced stress distribution and load-bearing design principles that Europe would not formalize until the Middle Ages. One of the greatest enigmas of the Lighthouse of Pharos lies in its bronze mirror said to project light across the Mediterranean for tens of kilometers. To achieve such power, the builders would have needed a remarkable understanding of optics and reflective geometry far beyond what history credits them with. Some researchers believe the mirror was parabolic in shape, precisely curved to focus light, much like the lenses of modern lighthouses. Others suggest that its alignment relied on the sun's position adjusted daily by skilled astronomers and engineers. But how could ancient craftsmen forge and polish a bronze surface of such immense size and accuracy without the tools we possess today? The Mirror of Pharos remains a puzzle shimmering between science and legend, proof that ancient minds may have understood the laws of light in ways we have only begun to rediscover. When the Roman Empire took control of Egypt, they preserved and replicated the design of pharaohs in several locations at Ostia, the harbor of Rome, and at Dover on the English coast. Yet none of these copies matched the grandeur and precision of the original, leading many to believe that the construction secrets of pharaohs perished with the engineers of Alexandria. Perhaps they had blended the best of Greek, Egyptian, and Roman methods, knowledge passed down orally but never recorded in written form. Today, scientists continue to explore the seabed of Alexandria in search of clues. Sonar scans of the area reveal traces of a three-tiered foundation system, matching the descriptions of ancient writers. Several digital reconstruction projects have recreated pharaohs in glowing light, its brilliance once again shining across the virtual sea. Yet no matter how advanced technology becomes, the true secret of how Pharos was built remains just out of reach. Did the ancients possess technological wisdom far beyond what we imagine? Or was it simply the result of relentless human determination and faith during an age of boundless ambition? Perhaps like the beacon that once lit the night sea, the answer still gleams somewhere within the depths of history, waiting to be rediscovered. Though the lighthouse of Pharos has long vanished, it still lives on in human memory as a symbol of our desire to conquer the impossible. Between desert and sea, ancient builders erected a monument so magnificent that even modern civilization must bow in admiration. And perhaps, within the stones buried beneath the sands of Alexandria Bay, still lies the secret of how humans once reached for the sky, with bare hands, with intellect, and with the unshakable belief that light can guide us through every age. Will we ever uncover all the secrets of pharaohs, or will it forever remain the eternal flame of the unknown illuminating humanity's endless curiosity? Across the isolated Pacific, more than 2,000 miles from any mainland, rises one of humanity's most haunting mysteries, the Moai statues of Easter Island or Rapa Nui. Carved centuries ago from volcanic tuff, these colossal figures stand as silent witnesses to a vanished civilization. But beyond their sheer size and eerie presence, there is an even deeper enigma that has baffled archaeologists for generations: the placement of their massive red stone hats known as pukao. Each one weighs over 10 tons, carved from a different quarry miles away, and yet somehow they were lifted and balanced with impossible precision atop statues already towering several meters tall. How could a society without metal tools, without wheels, and without beasts of burden achieve such a feat? How do you think the Rapa Nui people managed to place those massive red hats, each weighing many tons, on top of the Moai statues? Was it through engineering ritual or something beyond our understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. For the people of Rapa Nui, the Moai were not mere sculptures. They were living embodiments of ancestors' vessels, channeling a sacred energy known as mana. Each statue faced inland, guarding the villages, protecting their descendants through a mysterious force that bound the world of the living with that of the dead. Yet even among these sacred figures, those crowned with a red hat stood apart. The red stone symbolized vitality, power, and divinity. In many Polynesian cultures, the color red was the essence of the sacred, the blood of life itself. To wear red was to be touched by the gods. Thus, placing the pukao upon the Moai was not a simple act of decoration. It was a ritual of empowerment, a ceremony through which stone was granted spiritual life. But the mystery begins long before the hats reached the statues. The red pukao were quarried from a site called Punapau, a small crater rich in a soft scarlet volcanic rock known as scoria. This quarry lies roughly 12 kilometers away from the main site of Rano Raraku, where the bodies of the Moai were carved. The journey between them would have been treacherous, rugged volcanic terrain, uneven slopes, and no roads. To transport even a single pukao weighing 10 tons would have required an astonishing degree of coordination and ingenuity. Archaeologists have found pathways carved into the island's landscape, suggesting the ancient Rapa Nui rolled these cylinders using a combination of logs and ropes. But the absence of large trees on the island at the time raises further doubts. Where did the wood come from? How did they prevent the fragile scoria from cracking under such strain? Once the pukao reached their destinations, a greater challenge awaited raising them. The moai statues themselves often exceeded 7 meters in height and were already placed upright on ceremonial platforms known as ahu. The act of lifting a 10-ton red cylinder onto the narrow, uneven top of a vertical stone colossus without cranes or pulleys defies modern logic. Various hypotheses have emerged over the years, each attempting to explain what seems mechanically impossible. Some archaeologists propose the ramp theory that the Rapa Nui built sloping ramps of stone and soil up to the statue's head, dragging the pukao into place using ropes. This might seem plausible, yet the evidence is thin. No traces of such massive ramps have survived, and the amount of material needed would have been immense, far beyond the island's resources. Others suggest the rolling theory, in which the pukao shaped as cylinders were rolled up inclined surfaces or even spiral ramps encircling the moai. Marks resembling grooves have been found on some pukao, as if ropes were once wound tightly around them. Could these grooves have served a practical purpose, a way to pull the stone upward, turning it like a screw until it reached the top? Or were they purely symbolic, representing a spiritual spiral of energy ascending from the earth to the heavens? Modern experiments have tried to replicate the feat. In one famous reconstruction by a team from the University of Manchester, engineers used ropes, logs, and manpower to test the ramp hypothesis. Even with safety equipment and controlled conditions, raising a replica pukao only a fraction of the original size proved nearly impossible. The delicate balance required to seat the stone precisely atop the statue's flat crown left no room for error. A single slip would have shattered both stones and crushed anyone nearby. Yet somehow, centuries ago, the Rapa Nui did it repeatedly, dozens of times, with near-perfect precision. This leads to one of the most haunting questions in archaeology. How did they know it could be done? Was there a forgotten technique, a ritualized method passed down orally through generations, now lost to time? Or did faith itself provide the strength and unity needed to accomplish the impossible? There are more mysterious details. On several fallen pukao, archaeologists discovered spiral patterns and carved indentations that might once have held ropes or wooden beams. These features hint that the Rapa Nui understood advanced mechanical principles, friction counterweight, rotational leverage concepts we associate with classical engineering. Yet there is no record of such knowledge elsewhere in Polynesian prehistory. Could it be that Rapa Nui developed a unique, isolated science of stone movement, one that disappeared when their society collapsed? Others interpret the evidence through a spiritual lens. The act of raising the pukao might not have been purely mechanical, but ceremonial, a communal performance that merged engineering with faith. The islanders believed their ancestors' spirits inhabited the moai, guiding the people through unseen forces. To lift the pukao was to crown the ancestor with power, an offering of strength and continuity. The difficulty of the task may have been the point only through collective devotion could the community achieve it, proving their unity and belief in the sacred order of the world. Yet despite these symbolic interpretations, the physical question remains unanswered. The largest pukao weighs nearly 12 tons and measures over 2 meters in diameter. Even if ramps or levers were used, how did the Rapa Nui maintain stability and accuracy while lifting such a mass onto a curved surface computer models suggest that balancing such a weight, even slightly off-center, would cause the stone to slide off immediately. Precision of that level demands knowledge of geometry, counterbalancing, and coordination at a scale that seems astonishing for a Neolithic society. Some fringe theorists, of course, invoke extraterrestrial intervention, the ancient aliens explanation, arguing that the Rapa Nui could not have achieved this without outside help. While mainstream archaeology dismisses this notion, it reflects how profoundly the Pukao puzzle challenges our understanding of human capability. The truth may be less cosmic, yet no less extraordinary. A small island, people isolated from the rest of the world, developed the will, discipline, and unity to perform feats that still defy modern replication. When European explorers first arrived in the 18th century, many moai had already been toppled, their pukao lying scattered across the ground. Some fell from earthquakes, others from internal conflict when rival clans destroyed each other's statues. Yet even in ruin, the presence of those red crowns evokes awe. They are reminders not only of the islanders' lost skill, but of their devotion, an unbroken link between stone spirit and the boundless imagination of humankind. Standing before a moai crowned with a red hat is to face a paradox. The stone is silent, yet it tells the story of human ambition. Their craftsmanship was ancient, yet precise, as if from the future. How did they do it? Perhaps the secret of the pukao lies not only in engineering, but in faith and unity, the power to lift mountains and create wonders. The red hats of Rapa Nui are not mere relics of the past, but eternal witnesses to humanity's will to transcend its limits. Hidden deep within the rugged mountains of central Afghanistan lies a place that once pulsed with light, color, and prayer, and now whispers only echoes of a vanished world. The fortified caves of Bamyan stretch across the sandstone cliffs of the Bamyan Valley, a breathtaking yet haunting reminder of a civilization that merged art, faith, and architecture into one monumental mystery. For centuries, travelers along the Silk Road spoke of Bamyan as a holy city carved from living rock, a labyrinth of chambers and tunnels that seemed less built by human hands and more sculpted by time itself. Yet beneath the beauty of its murals and colossal statues lies an enigma that continues to baffle historians and archaeologists alike. Who designed this immense underground fortress, and for what ultimate purpose? Who do you think designed and built this magnificent cave system? The monks, a mysterious dynasty, or a long-lost group of architects? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Long before the region became synonymous with conflict and ruin, Bamyan was a flourishing center of Buddhist scholarship and meditation. Between the 2nd and 8th centuries, monks carved thousands of caves into the towering cliffs. Some simple dwellings, others ornate temples with high ceilings and intricately painted walls. They lived, studied, and meditated within this silent stone sanctuary, surrounded by the 2 colossal Buddha statues that once guarded the valley, standing over 50 meters tall. These statues, now lost to history, were not isolated monuments, but the spiritual heart of an entire complex that merged sacred devotion with strategic mastery. The caves around them were connected by stairways and secret passages, forming an intricate fortified network that could withstand both time and attack. The structure of Bamyan's caves reveals a startling sophistication. Some chambers were small meditation cells, but others expanded into halls capable of holding dozens of people. Ventilation shafts provided air deep underground, and angled corridors allowed sunlight to illuminate altars and frescoes without exposing the inner sanctuaries to the harsh winds of the valley. Many caves were reinforced with stone pillars or wooden beams, evidence that the builders not only mastered aesthetic design, but also understood advanced principles of engineering and stability. Archaeologists have noted the presence of elevated watchpoints, defensive walls, and even remnants of storage areas for food and water, leading to the theory that the cave complex once functioned as a hidden fortress during times of war. The link between Bamyan's sacred and defensive functions is what makes it so unusual. While Buddhist monasteries were often places of peace, the caves here seem to have served a dual role, a sanctuary for faith and a fortress for survival. Several of the larger chambers have narrow openings that could have been used as lookout points or archery slits. Hidden tunnels connect higher caves with those closer to the valley floor, suggesting a design meant for quick escape or covert movement. Such features would have required precise planning knowledge of rock composition and an understanding of how to manipulate terrain, all of which point toward a centralized design system far beyond what isolated monks might have achieved on their own. And yet no record survives to tell us who oversaw this grand design. Ancient texts describe Bamyan as a great Buddhist kingdom, but none name the architects or engineers who shaped the unit's cliffs. Was it a royal commission, ordered by a forgotten dynasty, determined to blend spiritual devotion with military strategy? Or was it the work of an organized monastic order, a hidden brotherhood of architects and masons who understood how to transform stone into both temple and bastion? Some researchers suggest that Bamyan's builders might have belonged to a cross-cultural guild that traveled the Silk Road, merging techniques from India, Persia, and China into a unique architectural language that has no parallel elsewhere in the ancient world. The mystery deepens when one examines the precision of the cave's defensive geometry. The angles of the entrances, the distribution of sight lines, and the layering of chambers across vertical tiers all seem too deliberate to be coincidental. Certain sections mirror the layout of ancient fortresses found in Central Asia, while others echo the design of Buddhist stupas, symbolic representations of the cosmos. It is as if the builders attempted to weave both cosmic harmony and military logic into a single monumental design. But without inscriptions or records, archaeologists are left to interpret only the silence of stone. Adding to the intrigue are the paintings found within the caves. Using pigments derived from lapis lazuli, cinnabar, and even oils made from linseed and resin, the artists of Bamyan created some of the world's earliest examples of oil-based painting, predating the European Renaissance by more than 6 centuries. The walls shimmered once with celestial imagery, golden halos, lotus flowers, winged figures, and geometric patterns that some scholars believe encoded cosmological knowledge. Were these images purely devotional, or did they serve as a kind of coded map for initiates who understood the spiritual architecture of the site? Some experts suspect that certain chambers aligned with the movement of the sun and stars might have been used for astronomical observation or ritual navigation, again, pointing to a level of planning that transcends mere monastic labor. When the tide of history turned with invasions, religious shifts, and centuries of neglect, the caves changed hands. Muslim settlers, Mongol armies, and local tribes each left their traces, carving inscriptions or repurposing chambers into homes and storage vaults. Layer upon layer of history accumulated, turning Bamyan into a palimpsest of civilizations. Yet even through these transformations, the underlying structure remained too complex, too deliberate, too unified to have been formed by chance. Every tunnel and stairway seems to follow a forgotten blueprint, suggesting that someone or some group once understood the total design of the mountain itself. Modern archaeologists have tried to reconstruct this blueprint through 3-dimensional scanning and drone imaging, but the full scope of the network remains elusive. Hundreds of caves remain inaccessible, either collapsed or sealed off by debris and unexploded ordnance left from recent conflicts. Satellite imagery hints at undiscovered chambers deep within the cliffs, while local legends speak of hidden rooms filled with relics and manuscripts buried beyond reach. Could these unseen chambers hold the missing records of Bamyan's architects, the planned scrolls, or carvings that would finally reveal their identity? Or has time erased their story, completely leaving only the question as their legacy? This unresolved question, who designed the fortified caves of Bamiyan and why, haunts every expedition to the valley. The scale of the project suggests more than simple devotion. It required manpower, organization, and knowledge of geology, geometry, and engineering. It demanded foresight, the ability to imagine a mountain as both temple and fortress, and yet the anonymity of its creators stands in stark contrast to their genius. Perhaps they intended it so, to build something eternal and selfless, a monument to enlightenment that transcends the ego of the builder. Or perhaps they vanished before they could inscribe their names, their knowledge swallowed by the very stone they shaped. As the sun sets over the silent cliffs of Bamiyan, the wind whispers through the hollow caves where the Buddhas once stood. In that echo lingers the secret of those who carved a mountain into a fortress, blending faith art and strategy into one eternal mystery. The fortified caves of Bamiyan are not mere ruins, but a riddle written in stone and light. Their walls breathe with centuries of silence, awaiting the day their design is understood. Until then, one question endures: who built the fortress of Bamiyan? And what truth were they trying to protect? Beneath the burning sands of northern Peru, a secret slept for 17 centuries, a tomb untouched, glittering with gold and death. In 1987, archaeologist Walter Alva uncovered what became known as the Tutankhamun of the Americas. Inside lay a man adorned as both king and god, surrounded by warriors' sacrifices and treasures beyond imagination. Yet the real mystery was not the gold, it was him. Who was the Lord of Saipan? A ruler, a priest, or something divine? His golden mask still stares through time, guarding a secret the desert refuses to reveal. Was the Lord of Saipan a king, a priest, or something beyond human? Share your theory in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The story began in Huaca Rajada, near the small town of Sipan. Looters had been secretly digging into ancient mounds, hoping to find gold. When police intervened and contacted Alva, what followed became one of the most significant finds in the Americas. Hidden inside a sealed adobe chamber was the intact burial of a Mache ruler, untouched for over 17 centuries. It was the first royal tomb of pre-Columbian America, found completely unlooted, an archaeological miracle. Inside, archaeologists uncovered a scene of divine ritual and unimaginable wealth. More than 600 artifacts of gold, silver, copper, and precious stones surrounded the body of a man adorned with jewels, helmets, and armor. His attire shimmered in the torchlight, an image frozen in time, whispering of a forgotten world where power and religion were one. The Moche civilization thrived along Peru's northern coast between the 1st and 8th centuries of the Common Era. They built irrigation canals across the desert, sculpted monumental temples like the Huaca del Sol and Huaca de la Luna, and developed a complex society ruled by warrior priests. Their art depicted ceremonies, battles, and sacrifices, revealing both their creativity and their brutality. Yet without a written language, the Moche left historians with only fragments, pottery, murals, and bones to tell their story. Saipan, as it turned out, was not just a burial ground. It was a royal necropolis, the final resting place of Moche elites, priests, and warriors. But the most magnificent tomb belonged to the one they called El Señor de Sipan, the Lord of Saipan. The tomb itself was a masterpiece of sacred engineering. Constructed in multiple levels, each layer represented a spiritual hierarchy, from common retainers to the divine ruler himself. The Lord's body rested at the center, adorned with elaborate regalia, a gold headdress, crescent-shaped earrings, necklaces of turquoise and chrysocollar breastplates and nose ornaments gleaming like the sun. His sandals of copper symbolize that even in death he walked among gods. Around him lay the bodies of his companions. Two young women, possibly wives or priestesses, two warriors still wearing their armor, a child, a dog symbol of guidance to the afterlife, and two llamas sacrificed to serve him beyond death. Every detail was deliberate, every placement meaningful. The air of reverence was so palpable that even seasoned archaeologists felt as though they had stepped into a temple of eternity. Among the countless objects were symbols that revealed the spiritual and political order of the Moche. The gold and silver peanuts necklace represented the duality of life and death, sun and moon, male and female. The pectoral ornaments depicted warriors and deities, showing that the Lord of Saipan was both a political and divine figure, perhaps a living god-king. Weapons found beside him, copper spear throwers, shields and banners suggested he led his people in war, while ceremonial items like scepters and masks showed his role as intermediary between mortals and gods. Every artifact told a story, but together they spoke of one thing: absolute authority. The arrangement of the tomb suggests an elaborate funerary ritual. The Lord's body was placed in a wooden coffin, dressed in finery and surrounded by offerings of food, gold, and sacrificed lives. The accompanying individuals were not mere servants, they were participants in a sacred passage. Their deaths ensured that the Lord would never walk alone in the afterlife. Some objects even hinted at astronomical alignment and seasonal symbolism, implying that the Moche saw death not as an end, but as a transformation. Through sacrifice and ceremony, the Lord's spirit ascended to the divine realm, continuing to rule from beyond. For the modern world, the discovery of Sipan did more than reveal an ancient tomb, it resurrected an entire civilization. The artifacts displayed in the Tumbas Reales de Sipan Museum, designed as an inverted pyramid, offer a glimpse into the artistic genius and spiritual complexity of the Moche. These treasures rival the tomb of Tutankhamun in splendor, yet they remain uniquely Andean, born of desert, ocean, and mountain. But even with all these revelations, the mystery only deepens. Despite decades of study, no one truly knows who the Lord of Sipan was. Was he a king, a warrior priest, or perhaps a god incarnate? His grave suggests he ruled over life and death, commanding armies and presiding over sacred sacrifices. Yet his true name, lineage, and story remain lost. No written record names him. The Moche language has vanished. All we have are symbols, warriors in gold, gods with fanged faces, and patterns that echo a forgotten theology. Modern scientists have turned to genetic analysis, hoping to trace his ancestry, but even that has yielded only fragments of truth. Some researchers propose that he was part of a hereditary dynasty of priest-kings whose power stemmed from their ability to perform sacred rituals tied to celestial cycles. Others suggest he was deified after death, a human turned divine. There is even speculation that the Lord may represent a title rather than a single man, the embodiment of the Moche ideal ruler replicated through generations. The most haunting question remains: how could such a powerful civilization disappear so completely? The Moche left behind no chronicles, no records of conquest, and no sign of foreign invasion. Did climate change destroy their crops? Did rebellion end their reign? Or did their faith in divine kingship collapse from within? The Lord of Saipan, silent beneath layers of gold and earth, still holds that answer. In the Museum of Lambayeque, the golden mask of the Lord of Saipan still stares through time, a silent witness to power, faith, and mortality. His treasures now gleam under lights, yet his true identity remains lost in shadow. The Moche have vanished, but their mystery endures. Perhaps that is Saipan's greatest legacy, not the gold, But the question that still echoes through centuries, who was he really? High above the Ionian Sea, on the lonely cliffs of northern Ithaca, lies a ruin shrouded in silence and myth. Winds howl through broken columns, carrying whispers of a name that has echoed for 3 millennia: Odysseus. This is not just another forgotten temple of the ancient world. It is a shrine that blurs the line between legend and history, a place where stone and story intertwine. Archaeologists call it the Sanctuary of Odysseus, but to those who stand before its weathered walls, it feels like something far older, a relic from an age when men and gods still shared the same breath. Beneath the bleached stones and shattered altars lies an unsolved mystery that refuses to fade. Was this truly the sacred home of the cunning king of Ithaca? Or does it hide the memory of a god even older than his name? Could this sanctuary truly belong to the legendary Odysseus, or was it once a temple to a forgotten god long before his time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The story begins with the island itself. For more than 2,000 years, scholars have debated the true location of Homer's Ithaca. Some believe it is the modern island of Ithaki. Others insist the poet's geography points instead to the Peliki Peninsula of nearby Kephallonia. Yet no matter how the maps are drawn, Agios Athanasios, the hillside site of the sanctuary, stands at the heart of the mystery. When excavations began in the late 19th century, archaeologists uncovered traces of an ancient complex built of massive limestone blocks resting on a natural terrace that overlooks the Ionian Sea. From the start, the site radiated something extraordinary, an aura both religious and heroic, as though its stones still whispered of rituals once performed in honor of a man who blurred the boundary between mortal and myth. Inside the sanctuary's weathered foundations, fragments of pottery and terracotta figurines emerge from the soil, small votive offerings shaped like sailors' warriors and men holding paddles or rudders. Some wore conical caps, reminiscent of those depicted on ancient depictions of Odysseus. Others held miniature oars, the unmistakable symbol of a seafarer's life. One broken inscription, etched into a stone slab, read simply, "To Odysseus." It was the kind of find archaeologists dream of, a direct invocation to the hero himself. And yet, like so much of Greek archaeology, the deeper the dig went, the more elusive the truth became. The sanctuary's layout baffled scholars. It combined Mycenaean-style masonry great stones, fitted so perfectly that no mortar was required, with later Hellenic additions. The craftsmanship was astonishingly precise, far beyond what one would expect on a small island far from the great city-states of the classical world. How had such architectural skill reached Ithaca? And more importantly, why would such effort be devoted to a hero whom even the ancients regarded as half legend? As excavations continued, attention turned to a peculiar structure at the center, a seat-like block of limestone carved as if for a throne. Local tradition soon called it Odysseus's throne, imagining it as the ceremonial seat from which the king once ruled. Nearby, a decapitated marble statue of a male figure was found, the body muscular yet serene, the neck cleanly broken as if struck deliberately. Was this the image of Odysseus himself, defaced during the later Roman purges of pagan shrines? Or had it once represented another deity altogether, its identity later overwritten by the cult of the wandering king? The sanctuary was clearly a place of worship, but its rituals were unlike those of other Greek temples. Within small stone chambers, part natural cave, part man-made crypt, archaeologists discovered traces of burnt animal bones, oil lamps, and libation vessels, suggesting secretive rites performed underground rather than in open-air altars. Some believe these were ceremonies of homecoming reenactments of Odysseus's mythical return to Ithaca after years of exile. To the ancient Greeks, such rituals symbolize the triumph of wisdom over chaos, the soul's return from darkness into the light. But others see something older and stranger at work. Several votive objects predate Homer's Odyssey by centuries. Their style bears the marks of the Bronze Age, not the Archaic period. This implies that the sanctuary may have existed long before anyone called the hero's name, that it was once a shrine to a local sea god or ancestral spirit, perhaps a protector of sailors who navigated the treacherous Ionian waters. Over time, as oral traditions merged and mythic figures evolved, that forgotten deity might have been reborn under a new name, Odysseus. This idea unsettles those who long for certainty. If true, it would mean that the sanctuary of Odysseus was never truly his at all, that the legendary king became a vessel for something much older. The Greeks were known for reinterpreting ancient cults, blending indigenous spirits with their pantheon of Olympian gods. Could Odysseus himself be a cultural echo of a forgotten sea god transformed by poets into a mortal hero whose journey mirrored the eternal voyage of life and death? Adding to the enigma are the unopened tombs scattered across the hillside. Beneath layers of limestone lie subterranean chambers, sealed for millennia. Ground-penetrating scans have detected voids and cavities that suggest burial vaults, but full excavation has never been permitted. Theories abound. Some believe these are the royal tombs of Ithaca, holding generations of island kings, perhaps even the mortal remains of the man who inspired Homer's tale. Others argue that these are ritual chambers meant not for the dead, but for communion with the spirits of the sea. Until the day one is opened, the question remains sealed in stone: who truly rests within the sanctuary's silent heart? The mystery deepens when we consider how the site endured. Even after Greece embraced Christianity, villagers continued to bring offerings to the ruins, whispering prayers for safe voyages. To them, Odysseus was not merely a mythic king, but a guardian of travelers, a watchful spirit who guided the lost homeward. It was as if the ancient worship had never ceased, only adapted, changing its face but not its essence. The name changed. The faith transformed, yet the human need to honor the wanderer. The survivor, the cunning mind that defied the gods, endured. So who was truly worshipped here? Was it Odysseus, the man if he ever existed? Or Odysseus, the idea, a symbol of endurance against fate? Perhaps both. In the quiet stones of the sanctuary, myth and memory fuse until they are indistinguishable. The sanctuary may not commemorate a single life, but rather the eternal human longing to return, to find one's way back from the storm. As the sun sets over the Ionian horizon, the ruins of the sanctuary of Odysseus glow gold against the rock. The wind that sweeps across its terraces carries a whisper, a name that has survived 3,000 years of storytelling. Somewhere beneath those stones, perhaps the truth still waits, not as a skeleton in a tomb, but as a fragment of our own collective myth. For in the end, the question, who was truly worshipped here, may reveal less about ancient Ithaca and more about ourselves, about why humanity continues to build sanctuaries to heroes who may never have lived yet, who somehow embody everything we wish to be. And until the sealed chambers beneath Ithaca are finally opened, the sanctuary of Odysseus will remain what it has always been, a temple of riddles standing on the edge between legend and reality, forever guarding the secret of who or what was truly divine. Beneath the silent waters of the Mediterranean lies one of the most extraordinary archaeological finds of the last century, a Roman shipwreck so well preserved that it seems frozen in time. Resting under layers of sand and silt, untouched for nearly 2 millennia, this vessel offers a rare window into the beating heart of ancient Roman commerce, craftsmanship, and seafaring ambition. But beyond the amphorae, gold ornaments, and intricate engineering lies a question that still haunts historians and divers alike: who truly owned this ship, and what secret cargo was it carrying when it sank? Who do you think this ship belonged to? A wealthy merchant, an imperial envoy, or a religious pilgrimage group? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The discovery happened almost by accident. A team of marine archaeologists was surveying the seabed off the coast of southern Italy when their sonar picked up an unusually regular shape buried beneath several meters of sediment. What they uncovered changed everything. A wooden Roman merchant ship nearly 20 meters long, lying perfectly still, as though waiting for the world to remember it. Its hull, built with the mortise and tenon technique that joined planks without metal nails, was still intact. Its cargo neatly arranged, its story suspended in the depths. Inside, hundreds of amphorae, tall, narrow ceramic jars, lay stacked in perfect rows. Some were sealed tight with wax, preserving the faint scent of olive oil wine, and garum, the famous Roman fermented fish sauce, once traded like liquid gold across the empire. Each amphora bore distinct markings, initials, trade symbols, and seals that identified their place of origin: Spain, Gaul, Egypt, and the Levant. These signs revealed the astonishing reach of Roman trade routes, where goods, ideas, and cultures flowed between continents as easily as the tides. But amid this ordinary cargo, something extraordinary emerged. Hidden between the amphorae were luxury artifacts, golden jewelry, carved ivory figurines, and small bronze idols. One coin, minted during the reign of Emperor Augustus, gleamed faintly under the lights of the divers. Such items were not typical of bulk trading ships. They hinted at a more exclusive mission, perhaps a diplomatic voyage, a royal shipment, or even a religious pilgrimage. The ship's structure itself added another layer of mystery. It was unusually reinforced, suggesting it was designed for long, dangerous routes. The presence of multiple ballast stones hinted that it carried heavy cargo, possibly precious materials or statues. Scholars proposed several theories. Some believe it was a government vessel, transporting official goods or tax revenues between Roman provinces. Others suspect it was a private trading enterprise owned by a wealthy merchant whose fortune and identity was lost to the sea. But the most intriguing hypothesis suggests something more secretive, that the ship was carrying spoils of war or sacred offerings destined for Rome itself. The evidence supporting this last theory is compelling. Among the debris, archaeologists found fragments of marble reliefs, objects typically used in temples. There were also lead ingots, stamped with symbols linked to Roman legions stationed in North Africa, suggesting the cargo had a military connection. Was this ship returning from a campaign, carrying tribute or looted treasure from conquered territories? Or was it heading out from Rome to reinforce distant provinces with supplies and wealth? The lack of written records leaves only speculation, and the sea keeps its silence. The condition of the wreck indicates a sudden and violent end. Parts of the hull were cracked inward, as if the ship struck a reef or was thrown against rocks by a storm. The mast lies broken, and pieces of amphorae scatter across the sand like shattered memories. Yet curiously, no human remains were found. This absence deepens the enigma. Did the crew survive, or did the sea claim them entirely? Were they rescued, leaving their vessel to sink alone, or did they vanish with it, leaving behind nothing but artifacts to speak for them? Modern technology has allowed scientists to study the ship in unprecedented detail. Using three-dimensional sonar mapping and remotely operated vehicles, they recreated its structure virtually. These scans revealed every beam and plank, confirming that the ship's craftsmanship was far more sophisticated than once believed. It wasn't merely a cargo vessel. It was a masterpiece of naval engineering, evidence of how advanced Roman shipbuilders truly were. Its design combined stability and speed with a curved hull that could slice through turbulent seas, making long-distance trade feasible even in treacherous waters. Despite these insights, one question remains unsolved. Who was the true owner of this ship? The cargo seems too diverse for a single merchant, spanning multiple regions and trade types, yet too personal for a state vessel. No ship name has been preserved, no captain's tablet survived, and none of the inscriptions directly link it to any known historical figure or company. A few scholars argue that it belonged to a consortium of traders, a joint venture between merchants from different Roman provinces pooling their resources for profit. Others, however, believe it may have been tied to a religious order or an aristocratic family transporting goods for temple offerings. Some even propose that the ship was part of a covert imperial mission, moving wealth that was not meant to be recorded, tribute payments, bribes, or relics meant for the emperor's private collection. This theory stems from the mix of mundane and luxurious goods aboard amphorae for trade alongside gold, jewelry, and temple artifacts. Such a blend suggests a dual-purpose open commerce on the surface, but something far more secret beneath. Every dive to the site seems to raise more questions than answers. The silence of the deep sea turns the wreck into a riddle, suspended between history and legend. The meticulous arrangement of the cargo, the symbols carved into the timbers, and the unmarked personal items found in the crew quarters all hint at lives. Once vibrant ambitions, once immense, now reduced to whispers in the sand. And yet, there is a beauty in this uncertainty. The sunken Roman shipwreck is not just an archaeological discovery. It is a story about the fragility of human endeavor and the vastness of time. In its broken hull, we see the reflection of an empire that once thought it could master the sea, and the humbling truth that even the mightiest civilizations are at the mercy of nature. When divers shine their lights across its timbers, it feels as though the past is breathing again, slowly, carefully through the shadows of the ocean. The amphorae gleam faintly, the coins still carry the emperor's face, and the sand gently covers and uncovers the story as the currents move. Every discovery made there, every fragment, every carving adds another piece to the puzzle, but never the final one. Perhaps that is why this ship continues to captivate us. It is not merely a story of trade or technology, but of an unanswered mystery: who sent this vessel to sea, and what fate guided its final voyage. Was it a nameless merchant, a noble family, or an imperial envoy? Until more evidence emerges, the identity of its owner will remain an eternal secret kept by the deep sea. At the southern edge of ancient Egypt, where the golden sands of Nubia meet the eternal flow of the Nile, lies a place that few travelers ever truly comprehend: Aswan's great necropolis. To the untrained eye, it is just a cluster of rock-cut tombs scattered across a barren hillside. But to archaeologists and historians, it is something far more profound: a sprawling city of the dead, carved into stone to preserve the power, faith, and secrets of those who once ruled the frontier of an empire. What do you think lies behind those sealed tombs? A forgotten ruler, a forbidden religion, or something we cannot yet explain? Share your theory in the comments below. The necropolis rests on the west bank of the Nile, the side associated with death and the afterlife in Egyptian cosmology. To the ancient Egyptians, this was not a coincidence, but a cosmic design. The sun set in the west, disappearing each night into the realm of the dead before rising again. In that daily rhythm, they saw the promise of rebirth. So they buried their dead here, where the desert swallowed the light, trusting that the spirits would rise again with the dawn. The great necropolis of Aswan spreads across nearly 25 acres of rugged terrain, carved directly into cliffs of rose-colored granite. From a distance, the site looks like an enormous honeycomb. Tunnels, chambers, and burial shafts descending layer after layer into the earth. It is both haunting and beautiful, a silent monument to an age when death was not an end, but a passage to eternity. Each tomb within the necropolis is a masterpiece of ancient engineering, hewn by hand from the hardest stone known to humankind. These chambers were cut with nothing more than copper tools, dolerite pounders, and human persistence. Some tombs rise high, like temples, with ceilings over 3 meters tall columns, sculpted to resemble papyrus stalks, and walls covered in inscriptions describing voyages, victories, and prayers to the gods. Others are more modest small chambers, with rough walls and simple niches for coffins. Yet even the simplest graves hold signs of reverence. Fragments of pottery, pieces of linen, traces of ochre, and sometimes a single ushabti, a funerary figurine meant to serve the deceased in the afterlife. Together, these details form an image of an ancient community that believed deeply in order, ritual, and the permanence of the soul. Among the most remarkable burials are those of Harkuf-Meku and Sabni, high officials of the 6th dynasty. Their tombs tell stories of diplomacy and exploration, of journeys deep into Africa in search of gold, ivory, and exotic wonders. Hieroglyphic carvings on the walls describe encounters with foreign kings, and the long treks across the deserts of Yam, a mysterious land that remains unidentified even today. But beyond the famous names are countless others: merchants, soldiers, artisans, and families whose tombs have crumbled or vanished beneath the shifting sands. Their identities are lost, their names erased, yet their presence lingers in the layers of the necropolis. It is here, among the unmarked chambers, that some of Egypt's greatest enigmas still sleep. One of the most puzzling aspects of Aswan's necropolis is how its builders managed to create such precision in near-total darkness. Deep within the mountainside, there are no traces of soot or fire damage on the ceilings, suggesting that torches were not used for illumination. Some researchers propose that the ancients may have used reflective mirrors to channel sunlight into the depths, while others theorize about lost forms of luminescent oils or crystals capable of producing a soft glow. Whatever the truth, it adds another layer to the mystery. Not only how they built these tombs, but how they saw what they were building. Aswan stood at the threshold between Egypt and Nubia, a place of both conflict and cooperation. The necropolis captures this meeting of civilizations. Hieroglyphic inscriptions blend with Nubian motifs. Depictions of Egyptian gods share space with distinctly African patterns. Archaeologists have found mummies wrapped in linen, but adorned with Nubian jewelry, hinting at marriages and alliances that bridged the two worlds. This makes Aswan's necropolis not merely a cemetery, but a historical archive, a physical record of cultural exchange at one of the most strategic crossroads of the ancient world. Over the past few decades, archaeologists from Egypt and Italy have meticulously mapped and excavated hundreds of tombs. Yet according to the latest ground-penetrating radar studies, more than half of the necropolis remains unexcavated, and dozens of chambers are sealed, collapsed, or hidden behind layers of rock. Inside those unopened tombs may lie mummies still wrapped in gilded cartonnage, untouched by looters or time. There could be scrolls written in forgotten dialects, jewelry inscribed with unknown names, or architectural designs unlike anything found elsewhere in Egypt. Every sealed door whispers a question that has no answer: who is buried within? This is the very heart of the mystery. Beneath the cliffs of Aswan, In darkness, untouched for thousands of years, lie tombs that no human eyes have ever seen. Some may have been deliberately hidden their entrances, disguised to protect the dead from tomb robbers. Others collapsed during ancient earthquakes, forever sealing away their secrets. But what if these unopened tombs do not belong to commoners, but to figures deliberately erased from history? Powerful priest generals, or even members of a lost dynasty? Archaeologists have uncovered astonishing clues. Fragments of gold leaf and carved alabaster near sealed corridors, signs of immense wealth and rank. Royal cartouches deliberately chiseled out as if someone wanted to erase a name from memory. And mummies, buried with artifacts that do not follow traditional Egyptian customs, bearing hints of a cultural fusion between two worlds. All of this suggests that Aswan's necropolis may be the resting place of an unnamed elite, those who once held power but were intentionally forgotten. Perhaps it is a fallen king, a heretical priest who defied the temple of Amun, or a Nubian ruler whose influence crossed borders. Each possibility could alter Egypt's history forever. And if one day one of these tombs is opened intact, it could reveal new dynasties' lost religions or entire chapters of the Nile's story that were never recorded. But until that moment comes, the stone doors remain silent, sealed by time and guarded by the sands of the desert, where the past still whispers within the stillness of eternity. Aswan's great necropolis is not a relic, it is a riddle. Every discovery raises more questions than it answers. We know who some of its inhabitants were. We know how they lived, prayed, and dreamed of eternity. But for those whose tombs remain unopened, their stories hover between existence and oblivion. Who lies beyond the sealed corridors? Is it a dynasty lost to civil war, a forgotten queen, a high priest who once controlled the frontier between Egypt and Nubia? Or perhaps someone whose very identity would rewrite everything we know about Egypt's southern borderlands? Until those doors are opened, the silence of Aswan will remain eloquent, speaking of both the grandeur and the humility of humanity's endless quest to be remembered. Aswan's great necropolis reminds us that mystery is not simply what remains unknown, but what humanity is not yet ready to comprehend. Beneath the desert-sealed tombs guard not only relics, but the silent memory of an entire civilization. Perhaps they stay closed, not from impossibility, but from purpose, awaiting their destined time to speak. When those stones, untouched for 3,000 years, are lifted, what will emerge? A lost name, a forgotten god, or the echo of life beyond death? Among the many ruins of the Roman Empire, few are as unsettling as the so-called unfinished Roman town. Hidden beneath layers of earth and centuries of silence, it tells the story of a grand dream that ended halfway. The outlines of roads, baths, forums, and barracks stretch across the landscape like blueprints frozen in time. Everything suggests that the Romans planned a thriving settlement, perhaps a major administrative hub in Britannia, yet inexplicably, it was never completed. There are no records explaining why, no mention of a battle, no sign of natural disaster. What remains is the eerie stillness of a place that never had the chance to breathe. This city was not destroyed, it was abandoned in the middle of its birth. Blocks of sandstone lie half-carved foundations, barely reaching knee-height, amphorae still sealed in storage rooms. The Romans were not careless builders. They were methodical, precise, and efficient. For them to walk away mid-construction suggests something extraordinary, a sudden overwhelming event that tore the workforce from the site and left it lifeless ever since. What do you think really happened to the Roman builders? Were they called away by the empire? Or did something far stranger drive them to abandon the city? Share your theory in the comments below. Archaeologists have mapped the town's layout with astonishing clarity. It was planned according to the typical Roman grid cardo and decumanous streets intersecting at right angles, a central forum, bathhouses, warehouses, and military quarters. Some stone columns rise, waist-high, before cutting off abruptly as if the masons had simply dropped their chisels and vanished. Wooden scaffolding turned to dust once surrounded the half-built walls. There are storage pits filled with lime and crushed gravel, raw materials awaiting use, and abandoned carts with rusted iron fittings still in place. The evidence reveals an active, organized construction site, then complete and instant cessation. For scholars, it's not just a town left unfinished, it's a moment of collective disappearance, captured forever in stone and soil. In the Roman world, construction was a massive logistical feat. Each major project required legions of laborers, soldiers, slaves, freedmen, stonemasons, carpenters, and engineers. Their tasks were meticulously scheduled. Materials were transported across provinces, and supervisors kept records of every denarius spent. The unfinished Roman town must have had hundreds, possibly thousands of workers coordinated like a military campaign. And then they were gone. No mass graves, no signs of evacuation, no evidence of attack or rebellion. It is as if the ground simply swallowed them. To this day, archaeologists refer to it as one of the most haunting examples of workforce disappearance in antiquity. What happened to those men and women who once filled the site with the sound of hammers and chisels? Some believe they were redeployed, perhaps recalled suddenly to reinforce military campaigns in northern Britain. Around the same time, historical records mention uprisings among the tribes of Caledonia. A military order from the emperor could have demanded all manpower to be redirected overnight. If true, the site would have been left as it stood, scaffolding still, upright tools lying on the ground, workers' huts empty. Yet this theory doesn't explain everything. The scale of abandonment suggests more than redeployment. Personal belongings were found scattered: sandals, brooches, coins, even food vessels, implying the workers did not expect to leave for long. They thought they would return, but they never did. Some archaeologists suggest a sudden plague may have swept through the camp. There are traces of lime layers, possibly used to sanitize contaminated areas, though no human remains large enough to confirm mass death. Others hint at a deeper mystery: fear. The workers may have fled not from orders, but from something unseen: superstition, omen, or a perceived curse tied to the land. Several altars discovered near the unfinished structures bear Latin inscriptions invoking the guardian spirits of the foundation. One damaged tablet carries a line roughly translating to appease the earth that resists the stone. Was this a symbolic prayer or a desperate attempt to ward off misfortune? Roman builders were deeply spiritual. If earthquakes, strange weather, or unexplained accidents occurred, they believed the gods had been offended. Sacrifices would be offered to calm divine anger. But if the omens persisted, entire projects could be abandoned. Could this town have been cursed by its own foundations? Some scholars even speculate about local resistance. The land might have been sacred to native Britons who viewed the Roman construction as a violation of ancestral territory. Rumors of divine retribution could have spread like wildfire through the camp, causing panic among workers already living far from home. The site yielded an extraordinary discovery, a cache now known as the Corbridge Hoard. Hidden underground, it contained armor, weapons, tools, and personal effects. The items were carefully arranged, not discarded, suggesting deliberate concealment. Was it a soldier's private hoard buried in haste before fleeing, or a sacred deposit to protect the site? Among these artifacts was a nearly complete lorica segmentata, the segmented iron armor of a Roman legionary. It was packed neatly with repair tools, nails, and a small oil lamp. Everything about it implies intention. Someone meant to come back for it. The owner never returned. Nearby unfinished stone blocks bear fingerprints, literal impressions of human hands. Those workers, whoever they were, left behind their silent testimony on the surface of the stones. The wind has long erased their names, but not their touch. Beyond superstition and plague, another possibility looms: politics. The Roman Empire's priorities could shift in an instant. A change of governor, a rebellion, or a reallocation of funds might halt any provincial project overnight. If imperial attention moved elsewhere, construction simply stopped. The workers, slaves, soldiers, or hired locals would be sent away to new assignments. But the complete lack of resettlement here is puzzling. Usually, unfinished towns were repurposed or later completed under new orders. Not this one. For reasons unknown, it remained untouched for centuries. Even later generations avoided building atop it, as if some unspoken memory warned them to stay away. What truly happened to the vanished builders? Were they recalled, reassigned, or consumed by disease? Did they flee from divine wrath or obey an emperor's decree? The silence of the ruins refuses to answer. Standing among the half-built walls, one feels the weight of untold stories. Each stone is a question, each abandoned tool a whisper of lives interrupted. The Romans built to last for eternity, but here, eternity began halfway. Perhaps that is the most haunting mystery of all. A city planned for greatness, built with precision, blessed by empire, and yet never lived a single day. Amid the black basalt deserts of eastern Jordan, where the wind cuts like blades and the sands have lain undisturbed for thousands of years, stand the ruins of a city that by all logic should never have existed. No rivers, no fields, no source of life, and yet once upon a time, the air here echoed with the sound of church bells, children's laughter, and footsteps on stone. The black basalt walls rise defiantly against the desert still standing after more than 1,000 years, as if refusing to be swallowed by time itself. Archaeologists call it the lost Byzantine city, often associated with al-Jamal or al-Rasas. But within these cold, silent walls lies something deeper, a story never told, a question no one has yet answered. Who built this city in a place without life? And for what purpose did they dare to defy both the desert and history itself? What do you think? Could this city have been the work of forgotten monks, displaced peoples, or an unknown culture lost to time? Share your theories in the comments below. Every idea might bring us a little closer to the truth buried beneath the desert. When explorers first reached the site in the 19th century, they were stunned. The ruins spread over a wide plateau of dark volcanic stone walls, arches, stairways, and even multi-story houses, carved entirely from black basalt. The architecture looked Byzantine in form, with crosses and arched windows, yet it felt alien, too isolated, too self-contained. No water source, no port, no trade routes. It was as if the city had chosen exile. Amid the time-worn ruins of black basalt, the ancient builder's craftsmanship continues to astonish archaeologists. Every wall, arch, and staircase was assembled from basalt blocks cut with breathtaking precision, stacked so tightly together that not a trace of mortar was needed. More than 1,000 years later, these stones still stand firm, defying earthquakes and the slow erosion of centuries. When examined, engineers found no signs of cement or binding agents, only perfect equilibrium. How could people of the 6th century without machines or modern tools have cut, lifted, and set multi-ton stones with such flawless accuracy? Could they have possessed a lost construction technique? Or is this the ultimate proof of a civilization's determination to create a city that would outlast both time and humanity itself? Hidden beneath the scorching sands of the Jordanian desert lies an engineering marvel that continues to astonish archaeologists a sophisticated underground hydraulic system built by the ancient Byzantine inhabitants. They created a network of cisterns, channels, and catchment pits, so precisely designed that it could collect every drop of rainfall from rooftop streets and even the rare desert dew. These reservoirs were carved deep into the basalt rock and sealed with protective domes to prevent evaporation and sand intrusion. Through this ingenuity, a seemingly lifeless land became habitable, sustaining a thriving community for centuries. Many cisterns still hold water today, enduring proof of the timeless intelligence of those who once called this harsh desert home. As archaeologists mapped the site, they discovered an unusual urban layout. There was no central palace, no grand forum, and no administrative heart. Instead, the city was dotted with more than a dozen churches, each with its own style and decorations. Some contained intricate mosaics, not the usual Byzantine scenes of saints and emperors, but strange symbolic images, winged beings, celestial cities, and geometric designs that seemed almost mystical. These motifs hinted at a spiritual independence, perhaps a community of monks or hermits detached from the authority of Constantinople. But others suggest a blend of Christian and older local beliefs, creating a fusion that official history never recorded. The more scholars studied the site, the more contradictions appeared. Inscriptions on walls used Greek, Latin, and Nabatean script, sometimes all within a few meters. Pottery revealed Roman, Byzantine, and even earlier Nabatean influences, suggesting that the city was built upon older foundations. This layering of cultures hints at a long, complex evolution, but the lack of clear documentation leaves everything in shadows. Then came the evidence of a sudden end. Around the 8th century, the city was abandoned. There are no signs of invasion, no weapons, no burned homes, no mass graves, only collapsed roofs and scattered possessions left behind as if people simply vanished. Earthquakes are common in this region, and some layers of rubble suggest seismic damage, but that alone cannot explain the total disappearance. Why would a community capable of surviving the desert suddenly disappear without trace? And so arises the greatest mystery of all: who truly built this city? The Byzantine Empire's official records are silent about it. Maps from that era make no mention of a settlement of this size. The local tribes, descendants of the Nabateans and early Arabs, tell oral stories of black cities built by spirits of fire, a poetic term for the jinn. Could this be myth born from awe, or a faint echo of something real? Some historians propose that the city began as a Nabatean outpost, later absorbed by the Romans, then transformed by Byzantine settlers. Others argue that it was founded by Christian refugees, fleeing persecution, or seeking solitude in the desert monks who desired to build a heaven on earth, far from imperial control. Still others believe it was a military colony strategically placed to watch the frontier between Byzantium and the emerging Arab kingdoms. Yet no theory fits all the evidence. The architecture speaks of wealth and stability. The isolation speaks of faith and defiance. Its design seems both practical and symbolic, as if each stone was laid with ritual meaning. Some archaeologists even suspect that different groups built different parts: Romans constructing the foundations, Byzantine Christians erecting churches, and local tribes adding homes. If true, this city might represent one of history's rarest experiments, a multicultural community that flourished at the edge of empires, united by survival rather than politics. In one ruined church, mosaic inscriptions mention the names of unknown patrons, individuals not recorded in any Byzantine registry. Their titles are neither noble nor clerical, suggesting they were common people. Perhaps this was the essence of the city, a civilization of the forgotten ordinary believers who refused to vanish into the deserts of history. But questions remain. Why was so much artistic effort spent here so far from the imperial centers of Antioch or Jerusalem? Why so many churches for so few inhabitants? And why no signs of rulers, governors, or fortifications against enemies? The silence of the ruins offers no answer, only the whisper of wind through basalt corridors and the faint glimmer of mosaics under dust. Modern archaeologists using drones and ground-penetrating radar continue to find subterranean rooms and sealed chambers, their contents unknown. Some believe ancient archives or relics still lie buried below the collapsed basilicas. Others suspect that the city extends far beyond the visible ruins, perhaps an entire lower level carved into the basalt itself. If true, the lost Byzantine city may not be fully unearthed yet. It may only be half revealed. And then there is the question of identity. If this settlement was not recorded by Byzantine administrators, did its people even consider themselves Byzantine? Or were they something in between, a hybrid culture born from the ashes of Rome and the sands of Arabia? This possibility challenges everything we know about the empire's reach and influence. It suggests that borders on maps were never as solid as we imagine, and that civilizations often continue in silence long after empires fall. Amid the silent ruins of the Jordanian desert, black basalt walls still stand tall, like the ghosts of time. As dusk falls, the stones turn crimson before sinking into darkness, leaving only the sound of wind and imagined footsteps. That lost Byzantine city remains a mystery, carved in stone, where faith defied geography and ordinary hands created something extraordinary. Every stone, every mosaic, every cistern whispers the same question: who truly built this city at the edge of the world? Beneath its small, unassuming frame lies one of history's greatest riddles in silver, the silver jittel coin. At first glance, it seems like just another ancient currency, but look closer and you'll see a silent witness to a crossroads of worlds where Greek artistry met Persian craftsmanship, where Hindu gods shared space with Islamic inscriptions, and where trade and faith blurred into mystery. Forged somewhere between Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northern India, these coins tell a story no empire dared to claim, and hide a question that still haunts historians today: who truly held the power to mint them? What do you think? Who truly stood behind the mysterious silver jittel coins? Share your thoughts in the comments. Perhaps you'll help uncover one of South Asia's oldest unsolved riddles. The silver jittal emerged during an age when Gandhara and Kabul served as melting pots of civilization, a place where Alexander the Great's Greek legions encountered native Hindu culture, where Persian traders passed through, and where Islam gradually took hold. When the first jittal coins were discovered in northern Pakistan and eastern Afghanistan, scholars quickly realized they did not resemble any other currency known to history. Each coin carried layers of symbolism: Indian deities, Greek letters, Persian motifs, and sometimes even Arabic inscriptions. This fusion was not merely a sign of commerce, it reflected an era of hybrid identity, where the boundaries between faith and power blurred. But this very complexity deepened the central mystery: who minted these coins? In the same region, at least 3 empires and dozens of small kingdoms ruled in succession, each with distinct symbols and coinage. Yet the silver jittal seemed to exist apart from them all, familiar yet foreign, accepted everywhere, but belonging to no one. One of the most startling features is that many silver jittal coins depict the Hindu god Shiva riding the bull Nandi, a sacred image of Hinduism, while the reverse side bears Arabic script or early Islamic calligraphy. This paradox raises a profound question: how could an Islamic regime that forbade the depiction of divine figures allow coins bearing a Hindu deity. Some scholars argue that this was the result of a transitional period of power when the Hindu Shahi kingdoms fell to Islamic expansion. To maintain economic stability, the new rulers might have kept familiar symbols to reassure the local populace while adding their own religious inscriptions to assert legitimacy. Yet another theory suggests that the silver jital was not state currency at all, but rather a private trade coin issued by multi-faith merchants who cared more about commerce than doctrine. Either way, the coexistence of such symbols reveals that the silver jital emerged from a society where belief and profit intertwined, a crossroads where Hindus, Muslims, and even Buddhists coexisted within a shared yet complex cultural space. Unlike Roman or Greek coins, where rulers' names, dates, and symbols were clearly engraved, many silver jitals lack any identifiable ruler's name. Instead, they bear faint marks, cryptic emblems, or deliberately erased inscriptions. This anonymity prevents historians from assigning them to a specific reign or dynasty. Some ancient economists believe this was intentional. They propose that the silver jital functioned as an underground currency used for cross-border trade that bypassed imperial taxation and laws. It acted as a neutral coin, trusted by Hindu and Muslim merchants alike, by Rajput warriors and Persian traders. What's even more fascinating is how widespread these coins are. Examples have been found from Afghanistan and Pakistan all the way to Nepal and northern India. Their near-uniform size and weight imply centralized control, but by whom? Was it a powerful merchant guild, or perhaps a forgotten dynasty that vanished without a trace? Though believed to have originated between the 8th and 12th centuries, the silver jital coin displays a level of craftsmanship far ahead of its time. Under microscopic observation, archaeologists found that the engravings of the god Shiva, the bull Nandi, and the mounted warrior were executed with astonishing precision, each line almost perfectly symmetrical. The circular borders along the coin's edge were evenly carved without deviation, suggesting that the artisans used highly accurate measuring and mold-making techniques unimaginable for the ancient world. Even more remarkably, the silver surface was polished using special alloys or mechanical tools, a method that would not become common in Europe until centuries later. These findings have led researchers to believe that behind the silver jital lay a professional minting system operated by craftsmen with advanced metallurgical knowledge. Yet no dynasty or kingdom in the region has ever claimed responsibility for such technology. Could it have been the work of a hidden power, an independent guild of silversmiths, or perhaps the last surviving trace of a civilization long vanished? Many jitals also portray a mounted warrior with a spear, an image that does not correspond to any known South Asian ruler. Some scholars interpret this as representing Rajput warriors, famous for their valor, while others believe it could symbolize an unnamed guardian deity revered by local populations. If so, the silver jital was not just money, it was a talisman of strength carried by traders and travelers along perilous Himalayan routes. This reinforces the theory that it was not state-issued currency, but rather the creation of merchant communities or autonomous militias asserting both faith and independence through silver. Astonishingly, silver jitals have been unearthed in sites with no political connection to one another, spanning thousands of kilometers. Some appeared buried alongside gold and gemstones, others scattered through ancient markets and shrines. Yet no ancient records mention taxes, minting, or regulation involving jitals, completely unlike the strict monetary systems of contemporary empires. Modern historians now see the silver jital as something akin to a proto-cryptocurrency, a non-governmental medium of exchange, sustained by trust and intrinsic silver value rather than royal decree. It may represent evidence of a free, secret economy maintained by merchants who transcended religion and empire alike. Here lies the core of the enigma. Despite hundreds of silver gittals excavated, no record identifies the authority behind them. Dynasties such as the Kushans, the Hindu Shahis, or the Ghaznavids have all been suspected, but none fit perfectly. Each had distinct iconography and language conventions, yet the silver gittal transcends them all, existing as though it belonged to no kingdom at all. Some historians theorize it was a trans-regional merchants' alliance controlling silver from the Hindu Kush mines and issuing a shared coinage for the region. A bolder hypothesis claims it to be the relic of a lost kingdom, one that may have existed in the historical void between the fall of the Hindu Shahis and the rise of Islam in Kabul. If true, then the silver gittal stands as the last surviving trace of an unnamed realm erased from history yet immortalized in silver. The absolute silence in Persian Arabic and Indian chronicles only deepens the mystery. Someone once held the power to mint silver, dominate trade, and then disappear without a word. Today, the silver gittal coin rests in museums from Kabul to London, yet its mystery remains unsolved. Some see it as proof of cultural unity, others as evidence of an ancient secret economy, or even the last whisper of a forgotten civilization. But one question still gleams on every coin's surface: who truly controlled its creation? A lost kingdom, a merchant alliance, or a fleeting pact of faith and power? It began as an ordinary excavation, a team of archaeologists digging into the soil of eastern Croatia near the modern town of Vinkovci, one of the oldest continuously inhabited settlements in Europe. What they found, however, was anything but ordinary. Beneath layers of clay and crushed stone lay a Roman well over 10 meters deep, built with precision-cut limestone blocks that had survived almost 2,000 years. But what truly stunned the team was not the well itself. It was what lay hidden inside. At the bottom, 3 Roman soldiers were found, still clad in their armor, their sandals with iron hobnails and fragments of military gear, engraved with insignias belonging to the Legio Gemina, the Twin Legion, a once elite force that guarded the frontiers of the Roman Empire. They were discovered lying atop one another as if they had fallen together in a single horrifying moment. There were no signs of careful burial, no grave markers, no rituals of farewell, only silence and darkness. The condition of the skeletons startled experts. Despite their long slumber, the bones were exceptionally well preserved, shielded from air and decay by the sealed environment of the well. Even fragments of leather bits of copper fittings and traces of fabric clung stubbornly to their forms. But the deeper the archaeologists looked, the stranger the story became. What do you think really happened in that ancient well? Were these Roman soldiers victims of a secret ritual, an act of revenge, or something else entirely? Share your theory in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Nearly 2,000 years ago, Vinkovci was known as Sibalai, a bustling Roman settlement in the province of Pannonia. It was a strategic military outpost, a meeting point between the Roman world and the turbulent frontier lands beyond the Danube. Soldiers, merchants, and settlers mingled here, forging an uneasy coexistence with the native tribes. By the middle of the 3rd century, however, everything changed. The crisis of the Roman Empire had begun. Emperors rose and fell in rapid succession. Armies turned on each other. Rebellions erupted across the provinces, and at the borderlands, like Pannonia, order was slipping away. It was in this storm of instability that the 3 men met their end, and somehow ended up at the bottom of a well that would preserve their story for eternity. From the start, the discovery puzzled everyone. The position of the bodies was chaotic, but eerily consistent. They appeared to have fallen simultaneously, their limbs twisted but not violently broken, suggesting they were not struggling when they fell. Moreover, no blunt force injuries or weapon strikes were found on the bones. There were no shields, but their armor and belts remained in place, as though they had not been robbed. Were they killed elsewhere and dumped later, or were they alive when they went down? The absence of trauma confounded both forensic experts and historians. If this was a crime, it was clean, efficient, and executed with intent. Inside the same layer of the well, the excavation team found ceramic fragments, animal bones, and Roman coins dating to around the middle of the 3rd century, the age of turmoil, when Roman authority fractured across the empire. A peculiar combination of objects, including a small bronze figurine of Mercury and traces of burnt material, hinted at something ritualistic. Some archaeologists proposed a chilling theory: the soldiers may have been sacrificed victims of a desperate attempt to appease gods or spirits believed to control fortune, disease, or war. Wells in ancient Roman religion were sometimes seen as portals to the underworld, places to make offerings to deities dwelling beneath the earth. But there is a darker possibility. Perhaps these men were not participants in a ritual, but victims of revenge, enemies of the local populace, hated representatives of Roman occupation, ambushed and thrown to their deaths as an act of rebellion. By the time these soldiers died, the Roman Empire was fracturing under civil wars and barbarian invasions. In this period, entire legions defected or were wiped out in uprisings. Could the 3 men have belonged to a loyalist unit executed by mutineers or rebels during one of these chaotic transitions of power? In Pannonia, history records numerous revolts, one notably led by Ingenuus, a Roman commander who rebelled against Emperor Gallienus around the year 260. Archaeologists believe that the soldiers might have perished amid such a revolt, their bodies discarded in the well by victors attempting to erase their memory. Still, the absence of weapons nearby, no swords, no pila, no shields, leaves the picture incomplete. Why were they not stripped of valuable armor and gear? Why bury them with their insignias still intact? DNA analysis later revealed something unexpected. The 3 soldiers were not from the same background. One had genetic traits common to southern Italy, another from the Balkans, and the third shared ancestry with people from Central Europe. In other words, they were likely recruits from across the empire, a typical feature of Roman legions in the provinces. But this diversity also complicates the story. Were they comrades from the same unit, or simply strangers killed at different times, their remains thrown into the same well by coincidence? The depth and uniformity of sediment, however, suggest otherwise. They entered the well together in a single event. This is where the mystery deepens. The scene tells of a deliberate act, yet leaves no trace of the perpetrators. If it was a ritual, who would have dared to sacrifice Roman soldiers, symbols of imperial might, in a region under strict military control? If it was revenge, how did civilians overpower armed men without inflicting visible injuries? And if it was a military execution, why choose a well instead of a battlefield grave or a pyre? Each hypothesis leads to contradictions. No arrowheads, no cut marks, no ropes, no signs of drowning. The well was dry when they fell. The bodies were not arranged with ceremony, yet they were not robbed, suggesting a swift and secret act, not looting or desecration. Perhaps the answer lies not in violence, but fear. In times of plague or disease, ancient societies often viewed wells as sources of contamination, and those who died near them were sometimes thrown in to seal the curse. Could these men have succumbed to illness, their comrades choosing to dispose of them in the well to prevent the spread of sickness? Or could they have fallen victim to their own rank soldiers executed by fellow Romans under orders that history has long forgotten? The truth has dissolved into the earth along with their bones. Today, the site stands as one of Croatia's most haunting archaeological finds. The well, once a symbol of life-giving water, became a silent tomb. The soldiers' armor is displayed in museums, their faces reconstructed through forensic modeling, gazing into eternity with the same unanswered question written in their hollow eyes. Who were they, victims, martyrs, criminals, or sacrifices to an unseen god? Even now, new scans of the surrounding area hint at other buried structures, perhaps part of a small Roman garrison, or even a sanctuary built over the well centuries later, as if later generations sought to cover, not uncover, what had been done.